in the morning, you got me up, all cause you need to talk. To 4 in the evening, wanna break up, say that you've had enough. I'm tired of talking, again and again, argue about everything. You are my darling, this kiss and make up, I know you wanna touch. You call me every night, call me every day, I just wanna get you alone now. Trust me when I say, we gon' be okay, we just gotta boom bada boom ba. I don't wanna fight, you know that I'm right, baby let me talk to your body. We gon' be okay, hear me when I say.
The Matrix has attacked me.
That's a top G, that's the big gorilla.
If you don't know who Andrew Tate is, your best bet is to just Google him.
Obscure internet figure with a cult following of fans.
At one point this year, more people searched for the controversial influencer's name than they did the names of Donald Trump and Kim Kardashian combined. And if you can be bothered to do that, the first video you'll probably see today is this one.
Mr. Tate, why did the police search your car?
Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan detained by Romanian police in Bucharest.
Ați constituit un grup personal organizat? Ce au găsit anchetatorii? Pardon.
It's a hard thing to admit, but it's understandable why they would choose to go their own way. And that's what's scary, is there's actually a rational reason why they would do that.
Men going their own way. And you can think what you want about it, but this is a really big problem for women, for us, for our future, for families, for you to find a partner. If a population of good men are walking away because they're fed up with women.
If you're being told all your life that you are bad and wrong just for being a man, and that you have toxic masculinity for being a man, and that, you know, women, there's this famous expression that, you know, a woman needs a man just like a fish needs a bicycle. And that men are basically useless, and that men are terrible, and that, you know, women are superior.
Our society is very callous towards men. The only message most men hear in the world is that they're a bumbling buffoon. The TV shows are full of idiot men. Commercials show men as buffoons. The society is against them. All they hear about is what idiots men are.
It's the mass of women that are taking over the culture and representing women. They're loud, they're mean, they say they want equality. Why are they not protesting in the streets for the changing the laws for alimony or child support or child custody? Because they don't want equality, they want superiority.
The male gender has more of a slave state, and it's because men are now subjugated to the law and to women, and nobody really believes it except the men who go through, say, the court. But most men think that they're exempt from that until they end up in a bad situation.
So for a lot of the men, and a lot of them have gotten screwed over in terrible relationships and divorces and gotten their kids taken away from them. So it's an understandable response.
In the United States of America, as a man, you can't speak up. I think most women tend to be very I'm stereotyping, but they tend to be more collectivist. They tend to sort of be more in that socialist mindset. So I don't know that you're going to see a huge change. I think the change will have to come from men.
The lives of women will not change until the men get the opportunity to also examine and define and change their lives. In many ways, I sometimes think that the 20th century was the century where the women made all these massive changes, and the 21st century will be the changes that the men will make, partly in adapting to the changes that the women have done.
And those men are doing something about it. They're saying, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm not getting married, or I'm divorced. They don't sit around just trying to live their life through women. They actually have lots of hobbies. They go out, they buy that land you were talking about. They're out there getting motorcycles. They're having a good time, and they're enjoying life without having to deal with the stress of the women and the society that tells them they have to have a woman in their life.
How would you feel? I mean, you know, you're not going to feel that attracted to a woman or care to be loving towards her or romantic towards her. So this men going their own way is a reaction to that. I really think it's a rational reaction to that. Men are finally like, hey, we've given you all you want. You know, you are equal in every way, and then you're still shaming us.
All right, guys, we're about to start in a minute. Thank you, brothers, for tuning in. I've been a little under the weather with the flu. But the question tonight is, was Andrew Tate targeted? If Andrew Tate was targeted, what does it mean for heteronormative masculinity moving forward? Because it appears that anytime men speak out, not only do they become target, but they become silenced as well. Andrew Tate called it 3 strikes: isolation, silence, and death. Let's do it. Fire for your mind. All right, guys, we're
Kosher
to it.
mission.
All right, we're gonna get into it, guys, on tonight. I don't know. I don't know. My sound is off. Guys, if you can hear me clear, please hit one. Sound. Sound. So, thank you for the guys coming in. Shout out to my man DC. He said, hell yeah, he was targeted. And I agree with you, brother. He definitely was targeted. And it would appear, guys, that anything synonymous to masculinity in this day and age is not only being targeted, but being silenced. It sounds like there's a delay. Okay, guys, if you can hear me, please hit one. If you brothers can hear me, hit one. All right. All right. So, shallow walkers. We know, and I know, and you guys know, that anything synonymous to masculinity now is under attack. And I don't think it's going to change moving forward as we continue to grow because Andrew Tate gave the three variables before the final variable, which is deletion. Andrew Tate say first they cancel you. After they cancel you, they imprison you. And the last stage is death. Was this Andrew Tate's final warning? He predicted it. And it's happened not only to Andrew Tate, but it's happened to me. It's happened to some of you men. Some of you men have been silenced to the point of cancellation. And see, the issue with Andrew Tate is that there are oligarchs behind the scenes. There are malevolent forces that some will argue that are behind the scene to watch what you do, what I do, to watch anything associated with masculinity. And it's not only happened to Andrew Tate, it's happened to me. And I'm sure it's happened to some of you men. That's why you brothers are listening on tonight. Some of you men, character have been assassinated. Some of you men have been silenced. Time you begin to speak up, man, it's not just men, it's also women. Just Pearlie talked about how her channel was taken off TikTok here recently. She talked about it. So anything associated with rationality, common sense, and masculinity is under the umbrella of silence. And they do it in different ways. Some call it the machine. And they do it to keep you silent because they don't want people to get the message out. And see, I believe that all people should have the opportunity to speak freely and to speak in what they believe in as long as they're not hurting nobody else. I think every man and woman should have a right to speak what they believe in. But see, some will say that the machine don't want you to speak out. The machine want to keep you silent. And the machine want to keep you in a state of perpetual animation. That's what some believe. And it's okay, guys. It's okay. You just got to see things for what it is and keep moving forward. But guys, I'm getting the likes up for me. Share the stream, please. We'll have a good show on tonight. A little under the weather, but nonetheless, we're gonna keep it moving because I want this show to inspire you, brothers, and for you guys to ask yourself the question: have you been invaded by phantom walkers? Have you been invaded by malevolent forces behind the scene? And I use the thumbnail with Andrew Tate on it, and I use the thumbnail with um, not only him being targeted, but also I use the thumbnail to correlate that many times people in these modern times, they don't see gray, they only see black and white. And see, that's a problem when you can't see gray. You only see black and white. And most people that see only black and white, sadly, sometimes they either have a mental illness, have an undiagnosed mental illness, or they have this lack of self-awareness. Life, you gotta see the gray in life instead of more or less seeing everything as black and white. Everything is not black and white. Some things is gray. If you can't see the gray because of your indoctrination, then how shall you hear what a person is trying to say? And see, that's the problem with modernism. That's the problem with some of this liberalism and indoctrination. People can't hear what no one is saying. Look at Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate looks like a white dude, but Andrew Tate is really a brother. Andrew Tate is a brother, guys. Andrew Tate is a brother. Um, Andrew Tate actually is the kind of person that was a personification of masculinity years ago. Some of the things that Andrew Tate say, I don't agree with. Like Andrew Tate one time talked about therapy. He talked about how therapy was one of those things that was not needed. It was a waste of time, and I don't believe in that. I do believe in what Andrew Tate is saying, that some things that we need, and when it comes down to mental wellness, we got to push through it at points or at some times. But to minimize the whole profession of therapy and say it doesn't work or it's not needed, I disagree with that. But by and large, I tend to agree more with what Andrew Tate is saying than I disagree with. And what you guys are seeing now, that you're beginning to see a world and a time where masculinity is on attack. We lost Kevin Samuels this year. We lost Alan Roger Curry. And I heard the Sin for the P died yesterday. I didn't know too much about the young man, but I heard he passed away on yesterday. So what's happening, guys, is that, you got some women out in space and they're trying to say that because these men are dying, it's an affront because they're talking about bad behavior of some of these black women. And what that is basically magical thinking, to say the least. And also, it's the exoneration of the divine feminine over masculine principles and masculine truth. And I want to share something with you guys. Doing these kind of shows is not easy. I know my streams have been a little low here lately. Don't know if it's a machine. I know that my numbers have been up and down. I can see under certain algorithms where I got more subscribers. Then I saw them, I get 10, I lose 10. So it is what it is, man. I'm gonna have to make some reevaluations as I move forward. I still love the brotherhood, but it is what it is. Telling the truth and standing firm on masculine principles is not the norm in this day and age. And what the machine will do many times, the machine will try to silence you because they don't want you to speak the truth. I don't need the machine. I don't need YouTube. I'm an entity unto myself. I love the platform of YouTube. It can be used for good. But you should never have to compromise who you are because of the machine. Man should have a right, and woman should have a right to speak what they believe in, as long as they're not doing anything to hurt no one. But nowadays you can't do it because folks are so sensitive. And it all started with Gretchen Thunberg. Andrew Tate was in his domicile, and then he went from being in his domicile to being accosted, arrested. And that's the kind of world you live in. If you say anything against the machine that makes the machine upset, they're going to do everything in their power to silence you or to shut you up. And that is not healthy for a man. Y'all, excuse me. It's not healthy for a man or a woman as it relates to their mental health. It's not healthy at all. Because everyone should have the right to self-determination, meaning to live their lives on their own terms. But that's not happening now. And that's a problem. Shout out to my man Gregory Scotland. He said, good evening. Gregory said that I think men, especially male content, need to be focused strong on their interests. Therefore, avoid goofy going back and forth conversation with women. Only discuss with women in alignment. I totally agree. Shout out to my man Alan. How you doing, brother Alan? There's stuff must be going around, Coach and son. There, yeah. I don't know what it is, man, but I've been sick. You guys can tell by my voice. Don't know what's going on. Y'all forgive me. But masculinity is under attack. I believe that Andrew Tate was targeted. And once again, the three antecedents his targeting is, once again, being canceled, being jailed, and the last stage is deletion. That's what happens when you speak against the machine. They warn you, they cancel you, they jail you, and then they delete you. And that goes against everything that our ancestors, especially if you're black, believe in, because black folks, if you look at black folks historically have been silenced. Black folks historically have been under the vestiges and the rummages of Jim Crow racism, where we couldn't say anything. And so what they do, they silence or suppress masculine strong men, or they would try to find the allegation. They would exaggerate things to make you look bad, especially when you begin to speak out. That's a problem. That's a problem because everyone should have the right to say what they believe in and to stand firm in their convictions. And you know, you got what some will call men like Piers Morgan. You got men like the Fallon Walkers. These people are oligarchs. And oligarchs are basically people that make rules. You know, many of these people are wicked. You know, they're very wicked. They're very dark. Selling. Their agenda is not for you to say what you believe in. If you look at Andrew Tate, this had a very Herculean show with just pearly things. He went from having a Herculean show with just pearly things to being incarcerated overnight. You don't think that's not a coincidence? See, many times people that are in this current movement that we live in, they can question you and silence you and tell you how to think, but you can't say nothing against them. You can't question their query. You can't silence their query. They can question and silence you. And that's what the machine does. The machine doesn't want you to say what you believe in, but the machine wants you to think a certain way. That's not healthy mentally for anyone. All human beings should have the right to speak, to say what they believe in, and not be caught up in code. But see, I see something that some of you younger brothers and sisters maybe don't see. I remember a time that men could be free thinkers. Men and women could be free thinkers. Want to be a free thinker. You should never want to be pigeonholed to think in one way. You should always be able to think outside the box. But being a former teacher, most folks now are subject of something called rote memorization. They only think based on what they learn, but they don't know how to critically apply what they've learned. Therefore, they never become better people. So they can't critically apply what they've learned. Hold tight. Shout out to my man Top Gun. I appreciate it, brother. Gregory Scotland said that Dennis Sperling Chandler was shallow banned the other day. Not surprised. First world societies don't want critical thinking people, right? They want compliance. As a result, they want to keep you in the program, right? That's crazy as hell, man. Shout out to my man Top Gun with that $10 super sticker, man. I appreciate Top, man. That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Yeah, man. Right. That's a deal, right? That's the deal, right? I mean, Top Gun was talking earlier, man. Then my voice went from messed up, man, like a matter of seconds, man. Forgive me, man. My voice is messed up, but I'm not surprised, man. You know, the silencing of masculinity is appalling. The silencing of free speech is becoming appalling. So whether you are more liberal or whether you're more, how can I say it, whether you're a liberal or whether you are, how can I say it, moderate or conservative, I respect every person's worldview. You don't have to agree, but I do respect your worldview. But what I don't respect is that when you try to silence people based on something that's so counterintuitive to what you believe. I don't like that. Because everybody should have the right to say and believe in what they believe in, man, woman, or children. Based on the polls, guys, the polls say that it's masculinity and free thought being targeted. 34 votes, 94% said it is being targeted. Now, I want to ask you guys a question. Feel the masculinity is being targeted. I want you to tell me why in the comments. If you want me to read a comment, just send a super chat and I'll read your comment out, or I'll read out your response, or if you got a question. But it's going to be a good show tonight. I'm going to drop the link at some point. I want to have a collaboration. I want to hear you men speak because this topic with Andrew Tate has been very poignant, but also has been very contentious, to say the least. Andrew Tate is a polarizing figure to those that are not traditional and to those that are not masculine. He's called all kinds of names, you know, misogynistic, misogynoir, or whatever. Sadly, it appears that anything that's masculine now is under the scope of misogynoir or whatever. You know, men can't say anything without having negative labels or negative connotations associated with. What the machine will do a lot of time, guys, is when you don't say things to the PC status quo, the machine will start slowing down your live views that take, I believe, to take subs away. I believe what they'll do, they'll limit your growth, and that's fine. I'm not going to take this stuff with me in the afterlife. No way. I don't care. You're not going to stop me. I get off YouTube before I have the damn tap dance and what folks tell me what to do. I get off. It ain't that serious. But I do what I do because I do want to see young men empowered. I do want to see people being to think critically, men and women, to think critical outside of the cultural conditioning that many have dealt with. Once again, you got these phantom walkers. You got these folks behind the scene that have an agenda. Sadly, some don't want you to think freely or think critically. And what I'm saying is that that's antithetical to our ancestors because our ancestors were slaves. And they were never allowed to think critically. Every time they tried to think critically by reading the writing, they were silenced. And so what you're seeing now is called the cyber lash. And the cyber lash is no different than the physical lash that your ancestors got. The cyber lash, when you speak out or when you speak critically, is due to negative social conditioning. They'll silence you by, canceling you or whatever, or, not really promoting your channel. That's okay, to say the least. Shout out to my man Greg Scotland. He said that hold tight, let me read what Brother Gregory said. He said that speaking of silencing people, the anti-passport bros video is way crazy. I would like for you to do a stream of possible mental illness of these women and their obsession with these men. No doubt, Gregory. I got you, brother.
Bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
I definitely do.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
That Gregory for you, brother. Just let me know. And I got you, and I appreciate it. And Gregory Scotland, because of your love and kindness, brother Gregory, you are the #1 sponsor of this stream. I appreciate it, brother.
It's the money.
All right, guys. So we're gonna get deeper into tonight. We're gonna get deeper into the show on tonight. And silencing once again, guys, is not healthy for your masculinity, but neither is it healthy for your self-identity. As I told you guys, I've been through what you all have been through. We all have been through it to some degree, especially if you are a masculine man. They would try to undermine you. They would try to discredit your credentials. They'll try to discredit you as a human being. Sometimes they will go to extremes with putting you in jail. They will blackball you or blacklist you. I've been going through it my whole life. And that's why I decided to do the shows that I do, because I want to see men liberated. But as I move forward, I got to consider how I move. Not because I'm scared, not scared at all. But you got to ask yourself the question, is it worth it? Because what you guys are seeing now is a manifestation of the machine. And the machine don't give a damn about nobody. The machine only cares about itself and its agenda. And I think that not only was Andrew Tate attacked, anything associated with masculinity now is under attack. You see it in the schoolrooms. Now boys and men are not going to school at high rates like they used to. You see it in academia. You see it on some of these jobs. You see it in the church. You see it all out in the broader media. Those things and those occurrences happen for a reason. And what it does, it arrests the development of men, and also it arrests the development of the masculine, which in essence is not good overall for anyone. Because a free thinking society is a society that can be critical in its thinking. The 6 steps to critical thinking is you got to know what you are doing. You got to remember. You got to apply. You got to analyze the information. You got to synthesize the animation. You got to apply it, and you got to evaluate it. But most people don't go through the critical steps of critical thinking. They don't, because they're lazy intellectual. They don't want to think. And if you can't see what the machine is doing, you'll never see it. You'll never see the oligarchs or the phantom walkers behind the scene trying to silence the masses and hinder people from saying what they need to say and or do. And that's a problem. Shout out to my man Top Gun. He said knowledge itself is under attack. Everything under the umbrella as well, no doubt. You're right, brother. You're 1,000% correct. I'm going to drop the link at some point, guys, and we're going to talk about the oligarchs. We're going to talk about the phantom walkers, these dark people behind the scene that's controlling how you think, how you move, and how you operate. And if you go outside the scope of the phantom walker, then not only are you silenced, but you could lose your life, sadly. I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to pull up a quote of what the oligarchy is, and it makes sense. Well, I've heard several people say that they're beginning to see the same thing that happened in their countries happen to America. The silence of speech and the silence of free speech. And that's a problem. Show you guys something real quick. Let me pull the screen up and show you, brothers and sisters, something. And this is what an oligarchy is, or oligarchy. It's a small group of people having control over a country, organizational institution, a country governed by an oligarchy, the English aristocrats, the government by itself. And that's what the oligarchy is. And oligarchs are individuals that play a role in the proliferation of government, but not only the proliferation of government, but how you think. There are a few people behind the scene controlling what you say and think in the media. They control how you think and how you see things. And that's a problem because, see, we can't let other ethnic groups or other special interest groups supersede that of black people. But so long, black folks have been used as stepping stones or step stools to allow other groups to supersede us. And that's a problem. That should never happen. That should never happen. But sadly, it does happen, but it should never happen. And that happens because it appears that it's by design to keep, the genders at odds, not only black people, but in general, because the family is the image of the Godhead. It's the image of God. But see, a fragmented family is not an image. It's a disillusionment. And that's what you're seeing now. And that's why so many kids are suffering. That's why the phantom walkers are winning. They're singing a song because they're phantoms of the opera. And it was a song back in the 70s. It's the same old song, a different meaning. It's the same old song. The song never stops. And so the phantom walkers are behind the scene creating chaos, telling you how to think because you don't have a foundation or a base for to think, and because you're so distracted, and because you are a very, many times, a lazy thinker, then you don't think outside of your current situation. And many don't understand how it's going to impact relationships and also the ecosystem in the future. It's going to impact in a negative way because men are checking out. But in the meantime, you guys get the drift. This is what the oligarchy is. And let me find something about phantom walkers. And some of you guys are walking zombies. You are walking, but you're dead. You have ears, but you can't see. Here, you got eyes, but you can't see. And that's a problem. That is a problem. But anyway, Andrew Tate has been targeted. A lot of you men believe he isn't targeted. I want you guys to talk about at some point when I do drop the link about how you've been targeted and what are the implications of being targeted and the implications of men being able to speak in the future. Where do you see this critical mass going? Where do we go from here in the next 10 to 15, 20 years? We're going to talk about that. because we need to have these kind of conversations. These conversations are good not only for the soul, but also for the mind, body, and spirit. Many men come into these spaces is based on what's called a group catharsis. Men are comparing evidence because of what they've been through in the past. Men are frustrated because of what they've been through in the past. And that's why we got to have these conversations, guys. Let me show you guys something. Because shout out to my man Cody Marshall. He said people in the hold on, Brandon Jett. He said that anything that is masculine is definitely being targeted. Look at the celebrities and famous figures being canceled. Also look at the content creators being challenged, being demonetized. Yeah. One of the shows I did, it got demonetized. I didn't get credit for it. Didn't say nothing to do nothing wrong. But see, you look at some of the shows now, guys, you got women in yoga poses. You got women in yoga poses. Eagle spread in yoga poses. But you mean to tell me something as heinous as that? Women in eagle poses, their channels don't get demonetized. But you mean to tell me anytime men talk about male rights, then it's a problem? You can't beat the machine, guys. It's all about design. I had a show that got demonetized. My channel numbers have been plummeting here lately. And I want to ask you guys a question. Are you guys getting notifications? If you're not, I need everybody to turn on their notifications right now. If you guys are not getting your notifications, turn on your notifications. If everybody's getting notifications, I need you to hit 1. Shout out to my man also, Cody Marshall. Cody said that people in the manosphere need to read the Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein, 48 Laws of Power and the Art of War. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you, Cody. And thank you, Brandon Jen. I appreciate it. But guys, I need you to do me a favor. If you're getting my notifications, hit my desktop, gun. I appreciate it. Okay, good. You're getting notifications. Good. And guys, do me a favor. Share the streams, man. Thank you, Brother Allen. Share the streams, too. Share these streams, man. Share these streams. Sharing the stream helps get the message out. It definitely helps get the message out. We want to get these numbers back up to where they used to be in the future. But if not, that's fine. I'll just look at some other areas. But I'm grateful to the brothers that always show love and show consistency. I got 3 people to say they get notifications. 4. I need everybody else, to the few that are watching. If you're getting the notifications, please let me know by hitting 1 or 2. By hitting 1. If you're not getting it, then I need you to hit 2. But I want to show you guys something real quick. Hold tight. This is Brother Andrew Tate breaking it down.
As Andrew Tate, whose videos have been viewed billions of times online, but he's been banned from pretty much every mainstream social media platform, including Twitter. Andrew Tate, welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Your take on this, I think, is quite interesting because you've been a victim of being, if victim's the right word, but you've been removed from social media platforms for your opinions.
Thank you, guys.
Elon Musk has dedicated himself, he says, to restoring free speech. Do you think that's going to include you, for example?
I don't think it matters if it includes me or not. I think what's important is that free speech is the #1 weapon against absolute tyranny. And although you cannot have complete free speech because then conversations completely break down into asinine insult fests, I do like the idea of the changing of the guard when it comes to control over information.
Is it possible, Andrew Tate, to actually police something like Twitter, to be a platform for genuine free speech? Or is it so toxic and tribal now that whatever happens, before we had all the people on the right screaming away that they were being no platformed and so on. Now you've got all the people on the left screaming that they're being diminished in some way. It's very tribal, very toxic. Can Musk cut through that? And if so, how?
Yeah, it's going to be extremely difficult. There's always going to be one group of people who are extremely unhappy, but I think that anybody who's perspicacious enough to understand the truth of what's been going on in the world recently will know that the left and their narratives have certainly been protected for a very long time. And the universe has swings and balances, and God often restores balance to the universe, and perhaps it might swing the other way for a while. I truthfully am a person who believes that all points of view.
Hey guys, if you know anything about Brandon, not Brandon, but Andrew, I didn't know Andrew Tate was a brother, but Andrew Tate's father is black. You look at him like a white dude, but Andrew Tate is a high yellow brother. And once again, he's an alpha male. He speaks his mind. And what Andrew Tate says is real and true. But sadly, some don't want to hear what Andrew Tate is saying. And like I said, sometimes Andrew can come off a little harsh. But by and large, I respect what Andrew Tate is saying.
You are extremely important because as soon as you block points of view, you have absolute tyranny.
And in a way, it's sort of self-defeating, isn't it? Because you carried on getting huge attention. It was interesting to me that when you came on the show, for example, we've had, I think, nearly 6 million people have viewed the whole interview that we did, which is a huge number of people, certainly far higher than watched it on conventional television. So you have a whole world out there online which operates away from social media platforms.
Yeah, I've been very, very successful in spite of them, but not many people can do that. I'm in a pretty unique position, but I think that everybody needs a voice to a degree, and social media platforms are now the most important platforms on the planet. They control information and they influence real world decisions, and they influence people's perception of reality. The last few years of COVID have been a perfect example of what happens when you censor one side of the argument and you only allow one point of view to be purported by the matrix in and of itself, and that's how you end up in tyrannical situations. I think you were just discussing that, Piers.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfectly valid point. You know, people have quite rightly held me to task over some of the positions I took during the COVID pandemic, notably when the scientists said as a definitive fact that you couldn't transmit the virus if you had the vaccine. It turned out that wasn't true. And I based my observations on that supposed fact and said, right, well, in that case, if you refuse to be vaccinated, you shouldn't get the same rights as people who've been vaccinated. If it's true that if you're unjabbed, you can pass it on. It turned out, actually, there's not much difference whether you've been vaccinated or not. And at that point, I changed my mind.
Well, you know, Pierce was an idiot to the machine as well. And you got people that got the jab, and they still got the beer virus. You got people that didn't get the jab and didn't get it. But that's what happens when people don't want you to think critically. They want you to be controlled by feelings and sensationalism than being controlled by rationale and logic. And that's why you have to be a critical thinker and be able to read through the minutia and the BS that you guys are seeing.
But I felt that there were a lot of people who were being deplatformed from Twitter at the time for questioning the validity of scientific statements, and they would then be a complete U-turn. So I do think it was a very interesting period, actually, for testing what free speech means.
It was actually worse than that. You're right, Piers, but it was actually worse than interesting, because what happens is when you censor an entire side of the argument and only allowed one side of the argument to have a voice, you are changing reality in real time. You are shaping the world. The only reason that scam continued as long as it did, and the only reason people didn't get to see their own parents get buried, and the only reason people sat and missed cancer appointments because they were scared of the common cold, was because they were censoring anybody who said anything contrary to the purported version of events that the mainstream media decided they want the entire world to swallow. It's beyond simply interesting, and it's beyond simply funny or coincidental.
Yeah, I mean, I will challenge you on one thing. It's not the common cold, right? COVID-19 has killed 6.6 million people.
What's going on? All right, guys. I don't know what happened. Don't know what happened. Hold tight. Hold tight, guys. Don't know what happened. Don't know what happened, but not surprised.
Welcome back to this special edition of Piers Morgan Uncensored with Andrew Tate, one-on-one. So Ash Sarkar, who's a lively contributor to this programme, has tweeted, Andrew.
All right, guys, I'm gonna reboot it. Hold tight. Let me figure out. Don't know what happened. But now you guys are seeing what I'm talking about. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Hold tight.
Andrew Tate, whose videos have been
control over information.
It's very
I'm a person who believes that all points of view are extremely important, because as soon as you block points of view, you have absolute tyranny.
And in a way, it's sort of self-defeating, isn't it? Because you carried on getting huge attention. It was interesting to me that when you came on the show, for example, we've had, I think, nearly 6 million people have viewed the whole interview that we did, which is a huge number of people, certainly far higher than watched it on conventional television. So you have a whole world out there online which operates away from social media platforms.
Yeah, I've been very, very successful in spite of them, but not many people can do that. I'm in a pretty unique position, but I think that everybody needs a voice to a degree, and social media platforms are now the most important platforms on the planet. They control information, and they influence real-world decisions, and they influence people's perception of reality. The last few years of COVID have been a perfect example of what happens when you censor one side of the argument and you only allow one point of view to be purported by the matrix in and of itself, and that's how you end up in tyrannical situations. I think you were just discussing that, Piers.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfectly valid point. You know, people have quite rightly held me to task over some of the positions I took during the COVID pandemic, notably when the scientists said as a definitive fact that you couldn't transmit the virus if you had the vaccine. It turned out that wasn't true. And I based my observations on that supposed fact and said, right, well, in that case, if you refuse to be vaccinated, you shouldn't get the same rights as people who've been vaccinated. If it's true that if you're unjabbed, you can pass it on. It turned out, actually, there's not much difference whether you've been vaccinated or not. And at that point, I changed my mind. But I felt that there were a lot of people who were being deplatformed from Twitter at the time for questioning the validity of scientific statements, and they would then be a complete U-turn. So I do think it was a very interesting period, actually, for testing what free speech means.
It was actually worse than that. You're right, Piers, but it was actually worse than interesting, because what happens is when you censor an entire side of the argument and only allowed one side of the argument to have a voice, you are changing reality in real time. You are shaping the world. The only reason that scam continued as long as it did, and the only reason people didn't get to see their own parents get buried, and the only reason people sat and missed cancer appointments because they were scared of the common cold, was because they were censoring anybody who said anything contrary to the purported version of events that the mainstream media decided they want the entire world to swallow. It's beyond simply interesting, and it's beyond simply funny or coincidental.
Yeah, I mean, I will challenge you on one thing. It's not the common cold, right? COVID-19 has killed 6.6 million people. It is one of the most deadly viruses, certainly of our lifetime. So it wasn't the common cold, but I do think it is completely justified for people to say we should be more cautious, I think, about accepting during fast-moving pandemics the word of scientists as being sacrosanct, because on a number of things, from the use of masks to the efficacy of vaccines in preventing transmission, they did massive U-turns.
I've read enough history books to know that the people who do the censoring are never the good guys. And they've been censoring a lot of arguments for a very long time in the name of good. They are weaponizing virtue, and it's always in the name of tyranny. Anybody who is out here trying to silence an entire side of an argument on any subject, whether it's COVID-19, immigration, anything else, they are the evil people who are out for absolute mind control of the populace.
Well, I certainly agree. I certainly agree that I think the healthiest thing for any democracy is for all views to be aired and debated. We seem to have lost the ability to debate. You know, when I interviewed you, yeah, we had a few fractious moments, but actually, I thought it was a pretty spirited debate between people who perhaps had, you know, preconceived views of each other. And I've got no problem interviewing you now about these, because I think you have an interesting take on this stuff.
And that's the key to life. When you reach...
And that's my point, guys. Critical thinking, using critical thinking is a lost art. People don't know how to critically think. That's why people don't know how to work out issues. They revert to the quickest remedy because they can't think critically. And being a critical thinker is going to be very important as you continue to move forward in this current world that we live in. But sadly, as I said earlier, they are phantom walkers behind the scenes, oligarchs that are watching you, they're watching me, and they watch any or everybody that think outside the norm. And that's an affront to the mental illness of human beings, because that can cause you to become or have mental illness-like symptoms when you don't have the right to self-determination. That's something we talk about all the time as therapists, having the right to self-determination. And when you're challenging and questioning a person's manhood, and you constantly got his manhood under attack or under scrutiny, then that man has no other choice but to either suffer in silence or implode.
That level of adolescence in your mindset where you can't handle any point of view that is contrary to your own, then you're truly a broken person. And that's what the internet is purporting. It's very interesting you said about Twitter being tribal. There's a large contingent of people on Twitter who simply cannot handle reading an opinion which differs from their own. And that is a degree of immaturity that we do not need out of.
Right. And so some of you guys are young. Some of you brothers are young. I'm Gen X. I remember a time when people had opinions different than mine, but I didn't try to cancel them or shut them up. They just had their own opinion. I respected their opinion. But nowadays, if you have an opinion that's contrary to the norm of the masses, then they'll label you and call you all kinds of names. And that's not good, guys, for a culture that was based on democracy. I know that everything we say is not protected under free speech, but people shouldn't be canceled or silenced for having a basic opinion. And that's what's happening now, because people only see things in black and white. They don't see gray anymore. You got to be able to see gray in life. There's some gray in life. Everything is not black or white. If you see everything through black and white, then you might be dealing with undiagnosed mental illness.
Else to be functioning with in the modern world.
No, I agree. If you were Elon Musk, this idea of charging $8 now a month, whatever it is, to access the blue tick premium Twitter account, would you do that? Would you pay the extra?
I think that social media companies for a very long time have lived in an absolute fantasy where they've printed money from thin air by charging people for pixels, and they grew into these large conglomerates with too many staff sitting around doing nothing, having coffee breaks. And Elon Musk is a businessman. He's walked into the office and he's firing a bunch of people who are messing around doing nothing, and he wants his business to make money, as it absolutely should. And how he decides that happens is his prerogative. I don't see why we should sit and accept that a website needs 200,000 people sitting around discussing in long meetings, sitting on beanbags about policy of human rights of some garbage, when he's come along and said, no, I'm a businessman. We're going to charge for our service. We're going to reduce the number of staff. And we're going to be a functional, coherent company, as they should be. And it's his prerogative to do it, as he's bought the company. I think he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree, because I remember the appalling censorship of the New York Post exclusive about Hunter Biden, the son of the president, about his laptop. This is 3 weeks before the election that Joe Biden won. He was heading, to a possible victory, but it was tight. And that story, they reckon, could have tipped it either way. But it was completely suppressed and censored, starting with Twitter, then Facebook, then others. Twitter literally locked out the New York Post account for 2 weeks for breaking a completely true story. I thought that was shameful.
It's worse than shameful. It's worse than shameful. When you control information, you control the real world. They affect the real world in real time. They are genuinely affecting the reality people live in. They are not just a company. They're not just a social media platform. It affects absolutely every single person on the planet when it changes who is elected. I don't want to comment specifically on Hunter Biden or the laptop. I would never kill myself. But I don't think it's fair that they would hide certain key information that close to an election. And the fact that they've done that was done.
And that's, again, guys, something that the machine constantly does. They hide or more or less distort information to keep you under the cloud of ignorance, also on the cloud of suspicion. And that's a problem. But once again, guys, you're talking about oligarchs. You got oligarchs behind the machine. You got oligarchs that control how you and how the world think. And that's a problem.
Specifically to affect the world that we all live in. And we all have to suffer the consequences of those things. So to sit and say that these companies can just do whatever they want and they're private, etc. No, free speech is beyond important for democracy. It's important for the reality that we exist under.
Andrew Tate, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, friend.
All right, guys, that's one. Let me remove this real quick. I'm going to go to the second one. And this is more or less talking about Andrew Tate and him being censored in free speech. Hold on.
Well, you're interviewing about free speech. Thinks women are a man's property. We shouldn't be allowed to drive. Boasts about only dating teen.
And this was a very candid interview with Andrew Tate and Piers Morgan. But as you see, Andrew Tate got the best of Piers Morgan. And what you guys don't understand, this whole thing is a chess game. Andrew Tate predicted this was going to happen. He actually played into the hands of the Gestapo or the oligarchs. He played into their hands. And he's basically letting you know that this is what can happen to you as well. And it all started with this lady named Gretchen. We're going to get into it in a minute. Hold tight.
They just imprint on them. Misogynists are disgusting whether they're in Afghanistan or a swanky London studio.
Am I a misogynist, am I? I don't think, first of the things she said, I don't even truly believe. If you're prepared to listen to me, I'll explain to you exactly why she's completely and utterly wrong. If you can go through the points again, she said.
Do you think you're a misogynist?
Absolutely not. I'm not a misogynist on any level. This is one of those buzzwords they just throw at people randomly. Homophobic, racist, misogynist, they just throw it out at people.
What is your view of women?
I'm a realist.
What is your real view of women?
I absolutely not really love women. I adore women. I have good relationships with women. Not a single woman has come up to me on the street since I've been canceled. Not a single one has said anything negative. Every single one of them has said positive things. You're a traditional male. I wish more men were like you. You understand your masculine roles. You understand what you're supposed to do. You understand you're supposed to protect women. You're exactly the kind of man I'd be looking for. I've never had a negative interaction with a female ever since I've been dubbed the biggest misogynist.
Where is the...
Please let me finish. I'm sorry, Piers. Also, there's not been a single woman who's accused me of a crime, not a single woman who's accused me of rape, not a single woman who's come out and said anything from my entire past of 36 years I've done anything wrong ever. Anybody else with my level of fame, any footballer, any other movie star, at least has people who've come out and accused them of rape, X, Y, Z. I have no woman who's come out and ever said I've hurt her. No woman who's come out and ever said I've done damage to her or been horrible to her. Everybody who ever interacted with me has said I've been a nice person. All of them. Random Twitter...
And Andrew Tate is correct, guys. And shout out to the lovely Gail Nelson. How you doing, dear? You guys have to forgive me for my voice. My voice is jacked up. I've been sick. I don't know where this horses came. This came out of nowhere. I was talking normal. Now my voice is jacked up. They might got one of my voice guys, but as you can tell, Andrew Tate is a very spirited individual. He's a masculine man. He's a man's man. And all of this started yesterday over some crap that he had with this woman named Gretchen Thunberg. Hold on a minute.
Nobody who seems to know so much is full of...
All right, you've responded to her tweet.
Yeah, she's a liar.
But where is the line for you between masculinity, which I will always defend, and which I agree with? I think a lot of women like men to be masculine, and what has become known as toxic masculinity. And the reason I ask you is that you are engaged in that debate with men all the time. Where is the line for you where men shouldn't cross, where the behaviour should be kept within a line?
Please define toxic masculinity.
Well, you tell me what you think it crosses a line from being a masculine, good man to a bad man.
And see, now what they do, they take basic masculinity and encapsulate it as being toxic. But see, here's the problem. If you're going to encapsulate some of the basic things that made me and men from the past as toxic, what are we doing with some of these negative female behaviors as well? Because men and masculinity is what kept the world safe. Men have not always been perfect, but black men traditionally have never been in power to create the laws of the power structure that we have. But it's something to think about.
There's no such thing as too much masculinity if it's genuinely masculine. Genuine masculinity is not out here to hurt people. It's absolutely the opposite. It's out here to protect.
It's to protect,
and when bad
right.
things happen, they call traditionally masculine men. If you need a firefighter, you need a masculine man. When you call the police because of the problem you have, you want masculine men. And as soon as a woman or a man is in trouble, when you look for backup, you look for masculine men. And masculine men have a duty to provide and protect those they care about. We have a duty to do things we don't feel like doing because we know we're supposed to do them. And that's why we stayed in the Titanic and died. Those were masculine men.
Where did you get your views about this from?
This is what I grew up with. It's the family I grew up around. And
your father, your mother?
Yeah, and the world I lived in. And I think a lot of the things I'm saying now about masculinity and how people should act in the world, how the world should function, were considered completely normal and accepted by everybody only 20 years ago. I think the world's just lost its mind. For me to stand up and say a man should protect a woman now gets to be called a misogynist and canceled. If I said that 10 years ago, everyone would say, duh. And what's funny is everyone who argues against me and says men shouldn't protect women, especially all the feminists, if they were with their boyfriend and a man broke into their house, guess who they'd expect to go downstairs? Who do you think? Think they go themselves? Are they going to Afghanistan? No, we send men to do these things. So
well, we send women in the armed forces too.
You have to generalize when you make points.
There are many courageous
exceptions.
people.
Exceptions do not disprove the rule.
No, but you've got to concede there are many courageous women serving.
Yeah, but he's talking about the exception. That's not the rule. We know that there are women that fight in the military and give their life, but by and large, it's something that men do. I don't know why Pearson's having this illogical conversation. But, you know, Pierce is part of the problem, too. And you guys going to see it more so in a few seconds. Hold tight.
Absolutely and utterly, completely correct. But by and large, traditionally, soldiers are men. Exceptions do not disprove the rule.
Well, it's not an exception. It's a fact that there are a lot of women now in the armed forces.
Correct. But if you were to take the average soldier, they are a male. If you're allowed to say who's a male and who isn't nowadays, I'm assuming their gender, I apologize. If you were to take the average soldier, they're a male, which means that exceptions are the female soldiers, which because there's a lower percent of them, a lower probability. Exceptions do not disprove the rules. Men do the fighting. Right now in Ukraine, men cannot leave. Women are allowed to leave because men have to fight in the front line and women are allowed to go to Dubai. That is how it is.
What do you say to...
And guys, that's one of the problems of the machine. The machine and its adherents have something called cognitive dissonance. And so as black folks, y'all should be even more incensed because it's always been said that when white America get a cold, and I do got a cold, well, maybe I got the flu, then black America get the flu. But you should be incensed because many of you don't see where this is going at. Because some of you got your fingers up your behind and you're twiddling your thumbs and you can't see where this thing is going. But you should be incensed about the machine and how it's impacting a lot of the future of what was a community. Because like I said, I'm from a generation where a lot of this stuff was normal. But now cognitive dissonance has a lot of people under an illusion. Yeah, it's caused a lot of people to be under a strong delusion.
Young men who come to you for advice, you feel lost, you don't really know where they fit into society.
I say that life as a man is exceptionally difficult. I say the most beautiful and the most terrifying thing about being a man is you're born without value. Society doesn't care about you. You're only going to be cared about based on how useful you are. You have the chance to build yourself up and become a superhero if you're prepared to do the hard work and be indefatigable enough to never quit. But if you're going to stand around and wait for a handout, nobody's going to ever respect you. And I think that a lot of people have forgotten about how difficult and how competitive it is as a man. We're always in constant competition with each other. And it's your duty as a man to stand up and say, I want to be.
I apologize, guys. I want to send a special shout out to my man, Ray Johnson. It's been a while since I've seen Ray. Ray, thank you, brother, for being so kind, man. Thank you, Ray Johnson, for that $20 super sticker. I appreciate it, brother Ray Johnson. And Ray Johnson, because of your love and your kindness, man, always showing love, Ray. I was thinking about you the other day. Ray Johnson, you are the #1 sponsor of this stream. Thank you, Ray Johnson. All right. Shout out to my man, Gregory Scotland, said that masculinity can't be toxic, behavior can. I agree. I don't think masculinity in itself is toxic. It's how you formulate that masculinity. But masculinity can't be toxic. Masculinity is what's needed more so now than ever. Once again, thank you to Ray Johnson for showing love, Ray. I appreciate it, brother. If I got you the last time, Ray, please forgive me, man. But thank you for your kindness, brother Ray. Thank you, sir.
Is important and strong and good-hearted and God-fearing as possible, and I need to work hard to achieve those things.
Dame Sheila Hancock says we've become too over-emotional as a society,
right.
crying too much.
And they're right. We have become too overly emotional. Our society was not like this years ago when I was a young man. It wasn't like this. But nowadays, anytime you say anything contrary to the status quo, it's a problem. And I think that kind of thinking is dangerous because it doesn't give any room of critical thinking, but also it doesn't give room for critical thought and critical expression or conscious expression.
About everything. Has she got a point?
She's completely right. And the dangerous thing about overly emotional men is that they're dangerous. They're genuinely dangerous. This is what's crazy. All these people who talk about toxic masculinity and how bad it is for men to be traditionally masculine. A traditionally masculine man does things he doesn't feel like doing because it is his duty to do them. He charges into the building because it is his duty. Not because he feels like it, because it is his duty. We're now teaching the new generation of men that they don't have duty and they can just act on their feelings and act how they feel, and they don't have to act as a man should. Do you know what happens when you get men who just act how they feel? You get school shooters, you get violence, you get rapists. Men who do not control their emotions are dangerous. If you find a man who is stoic, he's not going to hurt people. He's going to sit and think about his actions very carefully, and he's going to be a good man who protects and provides for his family. You find a man who just acts out on impulse and does whatever he feels like, you're going to find a dangerous man. Sitting here telling men to cry more and act with their feelings, and it's okay to feel this way, that way, etc., and have no self.
Andrew is right, and you tend to have guys just like Raekwon the Man and Day, and I see it all the time in clinical therapy. And as soon as they get mad at you, this is what they'll say.
Oh, yeah, put chain on them balls on my mom. They be broken balls. Kill some on my mom. Bro, they back me like
that's on my mom. That's on my mom. That's on my mom. They'll say it's on my mama. Anytime you say anything contrary to what they believe or what they want. And that's due to lack of social conditioning in a positive level that men used to have in the past, but we no longer have, and that's a problem.
Control. That is why we have the problems we have in the world. Absolutely and utterly wrong. So when they talk about toxic masculinity, they have it completely inversed on its head, completely and utterly wrong. We need to be teaching stoicism. We need to be teaching young men to understand that the world is very, very difficult. It's hard to be a man. You're going to feel bad sometimes. You just suck it up and perform anyway. Not to sit there and cry your eyes out or blame other people.
Tough being a woman too in modern society.
It's certainly tough being a woman, but I'm not a woman, so why would I speak on issues I do not understand? I'm a man.
You can feel an empathy for women.
I feel empathy, certainly, but I do not understand their issues.
See, a lot of men come up to me and they admire you. I've got to say, a lot of women I've spoken to don't admire. They think you represent misogyny. They think when they hear you not commit to saying the Taliban shouldn't be banning women from university education, well, why can't he just say that's wrong?
Well, firstly, that's not my experience. I experience the absolute and utter opposite of that. Secondly, it's because it's a moral point I'm making. My moral point is I speak on things I understand. I speak on experiences I've had.
But do you believe in equality?
I speak, yes. I speak on, sure. I speak on subjects I know intimately. I do not feel qualified. I'm a realist, and I do not feel qualified to sit and discuss the gender laws in Afghanistan. I have not been to Afghanistan. I have not researched the subject thoroughly. I'm not going to sit here and say how the Taliban should be running their country. It's nothing to do with me. I find it quite flattering, Piers, that although, I understand I'm monumentally influential, the most Google man on earth, etc., I find it very flattering that you think I have some kind of control over the domestic policy of Afghanistan. But I assure you I don't. I don't.
No,
so it's nothing to do with
I'm not asking you to have a view on having influence of a domestic policy. I'm sure the Taliban couldn't give a stuff what either of us say about it. It's just curious to me that it's an easy win for you to make women think you're not anti them, to say that when they're not given equality, as the women in Afghanistan clearly are not, because they're not allowed to go to university now, as of today, that is clearly unequal, unfair. We should all be able to agree that that is wrong.
Well, certainly, as a realist.
Even you, tough guy, Andrew Tate.
It's not tough guy. I am a professional. As a professional, I can state that, yes, it is not equal. Yes, it is not fair. That is obvious for anybody. I'm not saying those things are not true. What I'm saying is it's nothing to do with me.
Right, OK, but you made a concession you think is wrong there.
I said it's unequal and it's unfair.
Yeah, so wrong.
Well, perhaps.
Force yourself, Andrew.
No, perhaps it's wrong under certain moral guidelines, but under the moral guidelines which are currently in charge of the jurisdiction of Afghanistan, they don't believe it's wrong. It's nothing to do with me. Well, I'm not going to sit here and tell other countries how to run their laws. I'm going to live in societies with laws I respect.
You know what? I'll take unfair and unequal.
Sure.
Because that's self-explanatory.
All right, so you guys saw that, and once again, the more things change, the more things remain the same. So I want to ask you guys a question, man. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation, guys. I'm going to drop the link, and I want the brothers to come in and share and give their input to what's going on in this whole scenario. And yes, what you guys are beginning to see, this is a manifestation of what's going to happen worse in the future. I don't see things getting any better. So I'm going to drop the link, and I want to know what you guys think about this whole Andrew Tate debacle. And if you feel like masculinity is under attack, hold tight. So I'm about to drop the link for call in. And brothers, feel free to call in and share your misgivings and share your perception or share your perspective. Was Andrew Tate attacked? Are there oligarchs behind the scene that's doing what they're doing? Was this all by design? What do we know about Gretchen Thunberg? And before you guys come on, actually, I'm going to read something about this foolish woman named Gretchen Thunberg, whatever her name is. Let me pull this thing up. Okay. Let me read something through the Washington Post because they're trying to silence. Trying to silence Andrew Tate. And this is what they said about Andrew Tate. Let's look into it real quick. This is what they said about Andrew Tate. They actually are calling Andrew Tate. They said that who is Andrew Tate, king of toxic masculinity, accused of distributing. So long before he was the butt of viral jokes from the climate activist Gretchen Thunberg of human trafficking, Andrew Tate claimed he was bored growing up. As a child, his boredom was occupied by chess in the hope of following his dad's footsteps, who was a great chess player. He once said, "The only thing I want to do most when I get bored is defeating adults." When he turned kickboxing lane to waste opponents throughout Europe. And it's a chess game now, guys. You got to know how to play the game of chess with some of these oligarchs, some of these phantom walkers behind the scene, because they're watching you, they're watching me, and they're watching anything associated with masculinity. And it's something called a social credit score. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but they're going to start initiating or issuing a social credit score. And if you don't line up with the metrics of the matrix, then it could hinder your money and how you mobilize yourself. He said when he got bored with physical combat, he'll turn to verbal assault. Becoming a men's rights influencer known for his extreme misogynistic, violent remarks against women, he went on to build online followings and millions from the darkest corner of the earth by his mid-30s. And you notice, guys, sadly, everything is always under the umbrella of victimhood. We could talk about the struggles of young boys and men, and nobody don't give a damn about it. But then as soon as Andrew Tate say the basic things that men have been saying for years, and all of a sudden he's a misogynistic. And like I said, I don't agree 100% with what Andrew Tate says, but I do agree with a lot of things that he says. It's just common sense stuff. You know, Andrew Tate is not saying nothing profound, it's just common sense. The U.S. born, along with his brother Tristan, was arrested in Romania on Thursday, charged with human trafficking, forming an organized crime group as self-described misogynist, sexist, who has been dubbed the scariest man on the internet by critics and the king of toxic masculinity. And that's what they do, guys. They always use buzzwords. They use labeling terms, no different than how they use labels towards our ancestors, brutes and sassy mouth Negroes and all that, because it's all about control. But when you ask them to have a cogent conversation, they don't want to have a cogent conversation. Don't want to have a cogent conversation. The former kickboxing champion, known for his attacks against women, whether it's saying that women who are blank assaulted need to shoulder some responsibility, claiming that women are given to the man, belongs to the man, or nothing along the lines of the videos. He said, "I'm not a rapist, but I like the idea of being able to do what I want." He said once, one time in his video, where he was moved from England to Romania. Probably 40% of the reason he moved to the country because it was easier to evade blank charges. He said, "I like being free." In another video, he described how he would react if a woman accused him of cheating, is bang out the machete, boom in her face, and grip her by the neck. And once again, I don't know if Andrew Tate says this, but we do know that the machine will take things out of context. They will blow things out of context. They will gloat or minimize what you're trying to say, and they're making a problem. Shout out to my man, Yusuf Benjamin. It's been a minute, brother Yusuf. How you doing, sir? I appreciate it, brother Yusuf. Good to see you, brother. I really appreciate it. A minute, brother Yusuf. Be the background. I'm gonna finish reading some of these comments. So this stay on mute for right now, but you can talk in a few minutes. Give me a few more minutes as I read through this, and we're gonna chop it up in a minute. Hold tight, brother Yusef. The Tate 36, who has portrayed himself as a self-help expert for men, was regularly photographed for smoking cigars in front of his fast car and guns. He has seen his profile rise after chats with far right figures such as Alex Jones and Mike Cernovich. He's largely gained attention on TikTok, one of the many platforms that has banned him for his repeatedly misogynistic remarks. And I posted a video on TikTok based on what Andrew said, and that video got banned, and I got a warning. So the machine don't care anything about whatever. But yeah, you'll look at TikTok, and TikTok got all kinds of sexual provocative stuff. You see it on Facebook too. But anytime men post anything that's sexually provocative or anything that could be of anything, it's banned or it's demonetized. Just per the things got kicked off of TikTok. And it's all part of the woke machine, guys. Where the video tag Andrew Tate was revived through roughly 15 billion times on August, according to NBC. In July, Tate's name was bigger on search engines. Some of the people like former President Donald Trump, Kim Kardashian, and CB19 Forbes reported. Days after Tate back and forth with Don Berg dominated Twitter, he now finds himself detained by Romanian anti-crime organization unit that seeks authorization from a judge to hold Tate and his brother suspect for up to 30 days. A spokesperson for Romanian prosecutors often told the Post that one person was charged with rape. Brother Yusef, I'm going to let you go ahead and add to it, man, while you're here. How would you like to add to the conversation as I'm reading some of this, man? And y'all forgive me for my voice, man. But how you doing, Brother Yusef?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I was wondering about your voice. You know, is it the cold or is it the weather changing?
Man, I don't know what it is, man. My voice was fine today. I was under the weather for the flu. All of a CB19. But then all of a sudden I started talking today, man. I lost my voice. So I don't know what's going on. Yeah, they might be trying to silence my voice too.
Trying to silence you altogether. Yeah, I think I mean it's like this shit is like it's reading like a movie. Something
reading like a movie, man.
Like an espionage thriller or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I did the thumbnail intentionally because they are phantom walkers. Just like a phantom is dead. A lot of these people are dead on the inside. They can't see black and white. They only see they can't see gray. They only see black and white. And they're very wicked. And they're being controlled by the machine. And it goes back to George Orwell. You know, he came out with a book, 1984. Shout out to my man Juan. He said, environmental social governance. Okay, 1984 comes to life. I totally agree. What's your take on all this, man? This whole Andrew Tate debacle.
I just see like bits and pieces of it. So I mean, I don't keep track of it as much. I mean, as far as I know, I just found out that because it's all over, like everywhere, that he was arrested or they raided him again or something like that. And
right,
that is bizarre. I mean, I've seen a few of his videos way back before he even became famous. You know, the way that he is now. And I don't recall him ever saying anything that they were taking out of context in this article that you're reading off here. Like, I just don't. I mean, like any man in his right mind. Well, first of all, he would not have been allowed to have a YouTube channel for as long as he did before he blowing up. Had he said any of these things,
right.
They proclaimed that he did. So it's just really attacking the strength of his character. Of course, he's not perfect. He doesn't, you know, there's some things I do disagree with.
Right. Same here. I don't agree with everything he says, but I agree with most of what he says.
Yeah, most of it, and that's because he's standing for men. He's standing for himself. He's standing on principles and the values that his father did the right thing, brought him up under. You know, to chess master, and he became the man that he is today. And you know, his wealth and his fame and his steadfastness, it all translated from him being the man that he is. And they don't want to see that. They don't want to see a lot of men rise up the way that he did, and have the voice that he has to advocate for a lot of the men that are out there today. He kind of reminds me of Jordan Peterson, but also very intellectual in the way he speaks, but in a more relatable, less clinical type of way. He's more of a real worldist, this is practical, this is my life type of guy. And a lot of men relate to that. And you don't want the social media, whether it's TikTok, YouTube, whatever, having a bunch of men looking to him for inspiration, right? They want us to look to drag queens for inspiration and all these different pronouns for people as inspiration, as opposed to men like himself. So that's really what it's about. It's about controlling the narrative to control because we used to have people like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stallone back in the 80s, and I still watch those movies because when I watch movies that are based around masculinity, that's what I see. It's not necessarily aggression. It's that strength. It's that power. It's that optimism. That's what manhood is. It's not about violence necessarily, but it's having the potential to be violent. But we don't see a lot of that today. We see a lot of that. We have softer music, softer movies, softer everything is softer, sanitized, washed up, and clean to be more feminine. And so when you have someone like Andrew Tate come along and it's like literally the walking embodiment of what masculinity is and what a lot of men aim to be, then they can't have that, right? You got to X that out. And he was the greatest example of that. And he's bold enough to do it. The man got balls, man. I mean, look, he got the whole world as a target on his back. Not a lot of people can do it. A lot of people were off themselves. A lot of people would be in a crazy asylum. Jordan Peterson himself ended up in an asylum, because of all of the pressure. He's crying on television, this man, because he has so much of the world's pressure on him. So even he is as strong as he is kowtowing to what the pressures and demands that women have against him. He's extremely bright. So if that's what's happening to Jordan Peterson, and this is what happened to Andrew Tate, how many more men can handle this kind of
I've been through it, man. I've lost jobs. I lost several jobs, man. Not because I did nothing wrong, because, masculine dudes spoke my mind, and I didn't back down. And anytime people see masculinity, it's a threat, man. I used to have people tell me they were threatened by it. I was teaching school. So I'm not surprised. Shout out to my man, MC Recovery Wellness. He said, feelings is not a fact. Our community serves area mental health meetings. Hardly have any men attending here in the South Central LA and Watts nonprofit. Shout out to my man, MC Recovery Wellness. Good to see you both here. But I'm going to say to you guys something. You tell me what you think about this, brother Yusef. Now look at what this helper says. This helper Gretchen Thornburg. Gretchen Thornburg replies to Andrew Tate. And he talks about his car. She's a climate control lady.
Yeah, I remember her. Andrew
Tate says that, hello, Gretchen Thornburg. I have 133 cars. My Bugatti has a W16 8-liter quad turbo. My two Ferraris 812 composite zones have a 6.5 812s. He said, this is just the start. Please provide your email address so I can send a complete list of my car collection and their enormous emissions. And she responds by saying, small blank energy. Sense, man. Make it make sense. She responds by saying, small blank energy. Now imagine if Trump had went on, or any other man had went on and said, you got big E energy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she got big E energy. You see the hypocrisy, man, for selling to an agenda. Do you see the hypocrisy?
It's been like that for a long time. And, he understands how the game is played. The man played masterful chess on national TV while having a full conversation with a man and beat him in spades. So he knows what he's getting himself into. This is how the game is. Of course, there's a double standard and there's hypocrisy involved. And if you were to reverse to say the same or say something similar to her, insinuating that she's, maybe a loosey-goosey type of person, then he would get attacked even more so. But instead, she's saying that she's probably being praised, being loved, being adored, you go girl, that type of thing. That's just the way it is, So, but he knew that was a possibility upon responding to her.
But to the men that are watching, you guys see on full display please do enlighten me. Email me at smallblankenergy@getalife.com. About that, man. I want you men to think about the hypocrisy. Get a life at smallpenisenergy.com. And this is what happens when people can say what they want to say, and there's no consequence. And we wonder why, things can sit in the rate that it's going to. We wonder why, man.
There used to be consequence. There used to be boundaries. There used to be, but those men who, and this is something also I agree with what Andrew Tate said, is that the men in different countries, they pretty much control the narrative. They determine what the laws and the rules are going to be in that land. Like what happened in Afghanistan when we poured out. He broke it down perfectly. So the fact that she's saying things like that is because men allow it to happen. So the same women who hate the men that they're talking about and making these comments about, it's men that allow them to even allow them to say these things, because a man in his right mind, or a man who is masculine like Andrew Tate, wouldn't allow it to happen. But you have enough men who probably feel the same way about Andrew Tate as she does about him, who will allow things like this, and they have a disdain essentially for themselves and their own masculinity. So that's why they can allow this to happen and allow themselves to be degraded. And by allowing this kind of behavior to happen amongst women, you have a bunch of men essentially degrading themselves.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, man. This silencing of masculinity, what has it done to you mentally, Brother Youssef?
I looked at some of my old comments and some of the ways I psychoanalyze myself. You being a clinical conditioner, and I was like, how was I just 5 years ago compared to how I am now, or even 10 years ago? And you over time, because I grew up in a society, you eventually start to adopt some of the feminine behaviors that you don't even realize that you're adopting. Right? Until you see something different, or you observe something different, either in other men, such as Andrew Tate, or in other countries or other environments. So you become a lot more softer. You become a lot more, your standards, it gets chipped away. Whatever you stood for, if a woman's saying, I don't like this, I don't like that, you usually tend to kowtow to it unknowingly, right? At first you might be strong against it. Oh, I'm not going back. But eventually it's kind of like it just chips at you until you become a shadow of yourself. And now you're thinking like the way of woman. Now you're starting to agree with things like what Greta Thunberg said. Right. Act like this. You don't even realize you're doing it. So when I analyze myself from 5 or 10 years ago, it's like, damn, I used to be, wow, this was bad. This is really, really bad. And when you get it snapped out of you by someone outside of you saying, listen, this is what, this is how it's supposed to be. This is the way you should be. Remember who you really are. And it's like, dang, really? Like I came that far away from it. So that's why you have a lot of guys acting the way they do or feeling the way they do about themselves and about the men in such a negative light. Oh, men shouldn't do this, man. Women power, I'm all for everything women stand for. And it's because they just been beaten down to the point.
Beaten down to a pulp, right.
They don't even know that they're accepting it. At first they probably didn't. They most likely didn't. They was that free spirited wild stallion. They had that vigor, that fervor. They had that at some point. And then it just gets slowly chipped up, and it starts in school. It really starts in elementary school, grade school, then high school. By the time you get to college, you realize the colleges are not even for men, it's for women. You don't realize it until you get out of college. It's like, wow, now you've become feminized, right? Your mindset is thinking about women empowerment, all these feminism ideals, and now you're standing for abortion. And if you're a black man, you're doubly a fool for standing for it. I shouldn't use that word, I'm sorry, a word. You're doubly a fool for standing for it because you're participating in the own genocide of your own people and little people that look like you. So it's the greatest genocide ever, but you're so for it, right? And you have now you have white men doing it, like accepting it. Oh, I believe they should have a freedom of choice, but you don't have the freedom of choice to not choose to raise a son or the child that you brought in, that was brought into this world. You're forced to take care of that child, whether you want to or not. But you don't have a say so in whether or not your own child is being born. But you have a lot of men who feel like that's That's just that's godly right that a woman should have, just because there's another human being in our body being grown. And so it's little things like that. It chips away at you, right? When you start to think that abortion or the A word is normal, you start to think that feminism is normal. You start to think, and it starts at a very young age. It starts literally almost from the moment we are born.
Yeah. It's this minimization of masculinity, the minimization of anything associated with masculinity. And that's a problem. Mr. Allen, how you doing, sir? How would you like to answer the comment? With Andrew Tate being targeted, are there phantom walkers behind the scene trying to control how men think, men and women, but especially men?
Good evening, sir.
How you doing, brother? My voice, man.
Good evening also to the other guest. He is being targeted. I've seen a lot of things in my life, but this one, like I said earlier, this one definitely played out like a movie. Not only did he call that he would be targeted, then it happened right in real time, right in front of us.
In real time, right.
Yeah. The people behind the scenes that are pulling strings, they don't appreciate a man of his position speaking out against them and the bull crap they pull. And I get it, but they didn't take into account the fact that he decided to, number one, pump his message out. Number two, get support nationally, internationally, and then also decide to become a Muslim man. So you're not just messing with just him; you're messing with a few different nations of people. So they can't outright just kill him. They can't. They can't do it. From what I heard from his situation, it went from being the original charges being one thing to changed over to tax evasion. But either way, they have him caught up in the system. So they raided his home for one thing, and then ultimately try to charge him with something totally different. It's just a big glob of crap. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Masculine men are being targeted, and he was one of the voices like yourself that stood up and said, "Stand up and be a man." And obviously, they don't like that, not at all. They don't, because they would have changed things or handled things much differently than they did.
And the crazy thing is he's harsher than Kevin Samuels was, in my opinion, in terms of how he thinks and how he talks to men. Like, it's not just women. Like, they just completely overlook that. He's very harsh and very, get yourself up, shut your ass up, go to work, do this, do that. He's much more aggressive than Kevin Samuels was towards men. Right. But yet we still embrace him and we're like, yeah, we probably should get our ass up and do something. But when he turned and did what Kevin Samuels did later on in his career, when he started talking about women, this is your issues, XYZ, here are the solutions. Oh no, we can't have that. You got to stop that. And so they then you end up in a situation where they celebrate his demise, literally. So that's what for whatever reason, there's a lack of accountability and a lack of wanting to be accountable for anything, and having the absurdity of different viewpoints and beliefs and toxic. And you can have your beliefs and viewpoints, but if it starts affecting other people around you, especially us men, then it's a problem. And it is, because we're allowing women with these ideas and mindsets to infiltrate our own mindset. So it's like a virus, right? So when he's pointing things out like this in a much more aggressive way than Kevin Samuels did, then he's going to be a greater target for whatever this is, the establishment, whatever is going on.
Oh, I agree, man. And I'm going to ask you guys a question. Have you guys been targeted? And I want you to talk about your experience. Andrew Tate talked about cancellation being the first step. The second step is being imprisoned. And the third step is, sadly, deletion or death. I've been through it. Definitely been canceled. Never been in prison, but I went through a mental imprisonment where I lost out on opportunity. Not because I did anything wrong, I had to get lawyers, but because they wanted to control me. And I'll say the day before you control me, I'll just be go to the damn grave because you're not going to control me. And they didn't like it because they were intimidated by me. But starting with you, Brother Allen, then Brother Youssef, talk about the psychological warfare that you've been through when it relates to being controlled and how it impacted you in a negative way. And then talk about how you cope with that as well.
Myself personally, I grew up with a very controlling single mother that I've said it 1,000 times on different panels. That kept me away from my aunt, my uncles, and my male cousins because she didn't want me to find out what was going on. She was a feminist. I noticed a lot of her behavior and a lot of the women in our society. They ultimately, Mr. Tate and for a lot of Black men in general, whenever they can't control you, their first step is to call them the police or whatever government entity on you.
Right.
That way they can control you for them.
Right.
I experienced it in my first marriage. I experienced it while contracting overseas. I've experienced it all throughout my life where you have these groups of hyenas. They feel as though you have to do what they say and how they do it and do what they want when they want you to do it. And if you don't shuck and jive for them, then you're the problem.
Right.
This is just another great example of obviously the message is getting out. Only a hit dog hollers. And Mr. Tate thankfully has the financial resources to survive this.
Right.
He's a billionaire, unlike most average men. After $40,000 in lawyers' fees, most people are done. They have no more to give. So they either sue to the state or they accept whatever plea deal is given. But it just shows that this message is very potent. If it wasn't potent, you wouldn't have these problems. So please, everyone, brothers, keep in mind that I know we seem like we're relegated to our own little dark corner of the internet, but apparently it's doing something. This is medicine. You need it. This is therapy. You need it. If it wasn't having an effect, we wouldn't be saying this. And Tate was much more harsh than Mr. Samuels. But as men, we can take that harshness and turn it into something good. Women can't. They're butthurt right now, and it's showing. But it's cool. That just forces us into a deeper, darker corner where we don't deal with you. We recognize our enemy, and we will treat you as such.
I totally agree. Shout out to my man D May. He said, "Shout out to you, brother. It's been a while since I tapped in, but I agree. Anything associated with masculine has been an attack." I don't know if I read that, but if I did, I'll read it here. What do you think about brother Allen, what this woman Gretchen Thunberg said about Andrew Tate and him having small penis energy? What would have been the outlash if he had said she has big vagina energy? What's your take on that? The hypocrisy.
She does. She does. And honestly, I don't think we know it. We see it. It's just very, very. She's just a product. Honestly, I don't even know if I can blame them. They are a product of the environment in which they grew up under, and the women and the perhaps even fathers or lack thereof that caused them to foster this kind of mindset that they have adopted, and now they are projected into the world. It starts with them at a young age as well, right? So for us, it's us being feminized, and for them, it's them being masculinized. So she's carrying herself in a way that a man probably should carry himself, right? In terms of defending himself, standing for something, believing it very strongly, and being very rigid. She is that, right? So this is an example of that switch having taken place, but it took several decades for this to happen, right? It probably started somewhere in the 80s, 90s. So I feel sorry for her because she can't be, I've been around very feminine women and how they are and how they were raised by very feminine mothers, and they're very happy, they're content, they're blissful, they're at peace in their nature as feminine women. Likewise with the men that I've come across who come usually from other countries. That's how, when I was traveled across the country, I met these people in different cities who were immigrants from other countries. They were freshly coming from Brazil and Colombia and Philippines. And this is the mindset, right? They don't understand the switch. So we had those discussions. And so I feel sorry for people like Greta. She's just a product of her environment. And most women are. They're malleable in that way. So the environment in which they grew up under is going to be very difficult for any woman to be their true natural selves, the way as God intended them to be soft, to be nurturing, to be, all of these things that represent what, those feminine qualities and characteristics that make them very pleasant to be around and makes you want to protect them and provide for them. But then you have women like this who complain about men not being men, protecting and providing for them is because they're acting like men and they don't even know it. It's like they're so distant from it. So I feel sorry for them more so than I pity them more so than I am angry at them.
Yeah. I was asking Alan, what did you think about the hypocrisy? And then with this Gretchen Thunberg, Brother Alan.
She's just acting like the modern, everyday modern woman. And for her to bring up Mr. Tate's genitals in front of the world shows her level of, number one, disrespect, maturity, so on and so forth. If he fired back with a retort of the same type, everyone would have screamed and shouted and called her the biggest victim in the world.
Right.
Because because the scales are so unbalanced and so unfair, it's like you can throw a rock at me, but I can't even speak to you.
Mm-hmm.
And men, not just here in America, but pretty much internationally, worldwide, they're tired of it.
Right.
Any place that this that idea of feminism has touched has pretty much ruined the women, and it's not a fair fight. You can't scream you want equality, but you can't take this tongue lashing.
Right.
You can't scream you want equality and verbally or physically assault me and I just not do nothing back to you at all. Like that's not equal. So they're hypocrites all across the board.
Right, across the board, right.
All across the board, sir. And it's as we sit back and we watch I guess what they're hoping for, the destruction of Andrew, all it's doing is just hardening more men's hearts.
Yes, right. It's hardening their hearts, right.
That's the part that they don't want to understand. No, we want off the plantation. We want off the plantation. And if we have to burn this mother down to do so, then it is what it is. So my viewpoints may be a little bit more extreme, but there's some brothers out there their views are way more extreme than mine.
Mm-hmm.
Tate seemed to be one. He said on the show with on Pearly Things with Miss Renner, like before that man that gets married, gets a divorce, his wife takes all his assets. You can use $500 a month to take care of a kid, but she in turn wants $5,000, just hypothetically, because she wants the kid to be in Gucci. She wants Gucci. She wants to be in the Bugatti, riding around. Then she wants to screw the next dude in your car, in your house. He said, I'd rather burn that mother down. Well, that's the collective consensus that most men have come to. We refuse to be your utilities and tools anymore. And one of the things they do, I like what the brother Dennis Sperling said, they in turn sick the politicians on you. That way they start creating laws to keep you here on the plantation. Well, if you look at Haiti, one of the first things they did when they had their revolt, they burnt their plantation down. We're not going for it anymore. Right. If they can take a person with as much wealth as him, the average working man, you know what it is. You know what it is. So,
yeah, right. I totally agree. I totally agree. And because men have been emasculated, there was a book written by a colleague of mine by the name of Brother Edward Field. Guys, if you have not gotten this book, check out Brother Field's book. Have you been distressed or perplexed? Emasculated, a book written by Edward Fields IV. Everything that needs to be known about men in modern time. Listen, men are not complex. They are misunderstood and unappreciated. Learn what men really feel, think, and desire. Also observe their struggle for acceptance, love, and belonging. A must read for every man in this classic book by Edward Fields IV. Emasculated. Go get your copy now. This emasculation, guys, is not only dangerous to the mobility of men, but also to the mental health of a man. I want you to talk about, Mr. Allen, how Andrew Tate, in your opinion, was emasculated, seeing the similarities to his life and yours. I know you talked about it in part, but I want you to talk about how Andrew Tate was emasculated and what similarities you see in your life based on what he did.
Well, simply, it goes to show from years of working for myself and being a contractor, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If all it takes is an allegation and they coming for you. So this was a very, this was a lesson for that a lot of men. I'm pretty sure Kay has said it all the time. This stuff here will be studied well into the future. It was a lesson that any man, despite your position, can be taken down. When I went through my first separation and slash divorce, I was drug all through court and lied on and some more. And I got blamed for stuff that I wasn't even in the country for. It made no sense. And when they asked for the evidence to be presented, there was none. But just an allegation, despite your position and what your degree or how smart you are or your job title, can have you sitting right next to Ray and them. So it's terrible, but that's the reality that we face here as melanated men here in America. Not to say that the other races of men don't go through it, because they do.
Right.
European men, they go through it the worst. White men, they go through it the worst. But at like you often say, sir, we ain't got to be friends, but we can at least come together on common ground when we have a common enemy.
Yes, sir. Right.
And obviously, these women, they don't want equality; they want domination and control.
Yes, sir.
These same group of European women were screaming out, "Delete all men." Well, okay, who's gonna grow your food and take care of your infrastructure? No answer. Well, a woman can do it. Word. How long is it going to take you to figure out how a hydroelectric dam works, or how to keep that nuclear power plant running, or how to keep
right. Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
And they don't understand. It took years for men to cultivate a craft. The original car went from being a car in the buggy, but it took generations to evolve. One of the first automobile guys, he was a black man.
Yeah.
Years for the car to evolve into what it is now. You don't have the blueprint. You don't have the mind, the scholarship, or the ingenuity, or the person that teach and tutor, and also have apprentices under you. If every boy and man got on a rocket ship and went to Planet Man, women and children would suffer. And it's, and I'm not trying to be mean when I say that, but they would suffer. Most men would suffer if every man went back to Planet Man, because most men now don't know how to do what generations of men have learned how to do overall.
Well, they try to frame us as being Al Bundy from Married with Children, just useless, nothing, stupid. But the reality of it is, I know how my car works. Do you?
Right.
I know how my light switch works to turn my lights on. Do you? I know where my food comes from and how to grow it and cultivate it. Do you? If I'm stupid and useless, but I know more than you, who's really stupid and useless? So that's just my opinion. Mr. Tate was emasculated in front of us for the world to see, thrown into prison. You taking a billionaire and trumping up charges on him and throwing him into prison, and then you broadcast it for the world to see. That's emasculation. Most of us, we go through what we go through in our own little dark corner in silence because we don't talk about it. This was put on display for the world to see. Now that's emasculation. Now how he responds to it, I mean, we just have to wait and find out. It may make him worse. It may make him better. He may become quiet and more docile, or he may come out like a lion.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to tell exactly what his response is going to be. But honestly, with that much money, that much influence, I mean, hell, he talks to Elon Musk. He talks to Elon Musk. So yeah, with that much money and that much influence and having friends of power and influence, this may be what the us in the manosphere needed to push our agendas further along. Because if they can do it to him, they'll do it to you. A lot of politicians act like it's all good until their wife's the one dragging them into court, and they have to suffer and go through it. These rules and these laws need to change. They have to change. We can't allow this delusion to keep on going where these women are allowed to get away with literally, in some cases, murder, not just of the men, but of their children. Right. And they scream out, it's Jermaine's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. This is insanity. I'll land my point.
It is all. Now you're fine, man. You've done an excellent job. It's always the main fault, man. And like I said, what it does, it robs the right to self-determination. And what it does, it's unethical and it's also inhuman because you don't consider what men need or want, and that's not a good thing, man. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I co-sign what Alan said. It's it's speechless, really, to see it taking place the way that it is. It's a public humiliation ritual. Is what's happening. It just happened to Tory Lanez. And I'm like, I mean, the way he was framed, like it just happened to him. And it's happened to, and he has far less money, far less power and influence than Andrew Tate. And Andrew Tate is getting thrown in jail without even due process, without even a day in court. It's just the allegations, the assumptions, and all of these things with no proof in both cases, Lanez and him. All of these, I just say this happened. Enough women say that it happened. And there's no proof, there's no eyewitness. It's just, oh, it happened. And so therefore, let's just take him and throw him in jail. And not only that, but like you said, publicize it. It's a warning shot in a sense. Anyone else who dares to do what he's doing. And if we can do this to him, this man who is a billionaire, if we can do this to him, imagine what we can do to you. And so that is a cycle. That in itself is an emasculation because it's like it's the buck breaking. It's this modern day slavery. They did it to us way back when. Okay, let me show all you. They've got around 50 Negroes. Let me show you what happens, and then they'll do one sacrificial deletion of one guy in the most brutal fashion, publicly beating them and whipping them and throwing them to the dogs. Okay, now you know what to expect. Of course, they don't really want to get rid of all of them because you need a certain amount of slaves in order to keep the cogwheel going. But if you lead them to believe that they can get this treatment too, just like this one guy here that we showed you it can happen to, then you have a lot more men who fall in line. Now, like Alan said, we don't know how he's going to come out of this, and we don't know how the men who are observing this is going to come out of this. Are they going to say, "Oh, I don't want that to be me," and then go back into the dark corners, or are they going to come out with a greater force and in a war like a lion and actually charge and risk their own life and risk themselves in the situation like Andrew is? Are they going to do it or are they not? We'll see. We don't know. This is the ultimate test of that. It's the world stage of it.
And men should be hyper vigilant about it, especially if you're black, because of something that our ancestors went through. Our ancestors were often silenced, tried to be shamed into silence, man. And it's the good men, the greatest animals, to want to speak out even more. What's your take on that?
They should, but most are too docile. They're afraid of losing what little bit they got. If you gentlemen don't take anything else from this, I said it on my brother Alvin's show. If they want you, they gonna get you. If they want you, they gonna get you. This man is a billionaire. A billionaire. Most of us will never make that amount of money. Not hating, not saying that you don't have the ability, but just to keep it real, they are publicly flogging and emasculating a billionaire in front of you. And it is a scare tactic. So know that if the system wants you, it can come for you and come get you. So you might as well fight. You might as well.
Right. Yeah, right. I'd rather be dead and I stood for what I believe in to be a damn slave and surrender to the machine, man. And I think it's gonna get worse in the new year. If they did it to Andrew Tate, they did it to the president. What can they do to the average citizen? I mean, they put the damn Gestapo on him. And that's why I said, man, if you look at what you're seeing now, oligarchs behind the scene. These people are wicked, in my opinion. They're watching me. They're watching you. That's why I use the thumbnail about malevolent beings that have an agenda, and that agenda is to probably to control the masses, in my opinion. So take on that, Brother Allen, and then also back to brother Yusef.
I do agree. There is a certain group or groups of people that are working behind the scenes, and yes, malevolence does exist. Everything ain't sunshine and rainbows. And as men, as free-thinking, heterosexual men of all colors and nationalities, we need to come together. We always try to do our own thing, and that's cool. I respect it. I do my own thing too. But when it comes to issues like this, we yield the power. The majority of the people that arrested Tate, they were all men. They were all men. Until if they decided not to enforce whatever that warrant said, then he would have never been arrested. It's men they sent out to do the dirty work. It's men they sent out to enforce whatever rules and laws they want to impose upon you. Well, as men, we need to recognize that we need a unified front against whatever this is, because it's not just a government system. It's something way more insidious. And brother, I need you, you need me. Without me, you don't have electricity. Without you, I don't know, like maybe I can't get groceries. Without the farmer, I ain't eating. You ain't eating either. So we both need him. That's how things work. Instead of us being tribal and looking at each other as competition, maybe we need to be looking at each other more like brothers.
Right.
Because we're all equally under attack.
Right. I agree with you, man. And that's where we gotta set our ego aside. Men can be complicit with their ego, and that's why I say, whereas men, we may not agree on all things or ideology, but we come together as allies of a common cause only to dissipate when the crisis is over. The crisis has been going on for years now, and it's getting worse and a lot more bizarre. Can you talk about any attacks you've been through, Brother Yusef, on your job or also in relationships? And my voice guys is gone. I'm at any. My voice is talking. My voice is shutting down. I apologize, guys.
Oh, no, you're good. I mean, it's surprising that you even decided to come and do this in spite of, the way that you're feeling right now. So, yeah, I mean, that's the reason. It's the reason why I've had 15 something jobs and decided, you know what?
Talk about the 15 jobs you had.
Getting into it with managers, getting into it with female managers who didn't have, where I didn't, it's almost like a groveling. Like, it's like they want to feel like a certain kind of power of you. And then I would just step up and say something, either in defense of myself or one of my coworkers. Then I would get attacked. I would get it, and I get written up, or I get fired. One time I had my first job, my first really great paying job. I was framed for stealing money at a bank that I actually lived nearby when I was 19. I'm thinking like, why would I steal less money than what I'm making every week here at the bank? Don't you think I would steal a lot more money? Like if I was going to be a thief, I would walk out of here with thousands of dollars, not $100. And they was like, yeah. So it's just like, that was like, that set off the dominoes. I said, well, maybe this is just one job. And these were a bunch of female managers I was dealing with and female coworkers. I noticed that when I was rising up within the ranks, when I was rising up in the corporate ladder, so to speak, this would consistently happen. If it wasn't women doing it, trying to self-sabotage, then it was men who felt threatened by it. So, and they were being influenced by the women in their ear. Hey, Joseph doing this, Joseph doing that. And I would hear it coming back to me. So that's just one example. That's just the jobs. So I had to go into work for myself. It's just prevalent everywhere. It's not a very masculine friendly place, the work environment. So I had no choice but to figure out a way out of it and to make my own way out of it. And I'm not going to get into just the familial aspects of things, dealing with different women, dating. That's a whole different ball game. It's just it's the patterns that you see. And it's like, no, not every woman can be like this. Not everyone can be, this dismissive of men. Or is it me? You start to think, is it me that's like that? That's like this. It's other men.
Right, it's other men.
It's not just me. It's the previous boyfriends. It's their husbands.
Right.
Ridiculous. So I just kind of pull back, focus on me, do my work, do my business. And then I'm realizing only by sheer coincidence that there are women and there are men outside of this country. It seems to be a very uniquely Western American thing, which I did not even know until I started going across the country and meeting different people from other countries as a result of that experience. So, it comes back to getting the passport. Like, even though we talk about like, this is how it is in the world, I don't think it's a world thing. I think it's because the Western countries, we have a lot more influence over the media, over people's attention, that this is a Western thing. And it just looks like it's a world thing. But the reality is that there are so many billions of people all over the world who are normal, who are masculine, who are feminine, where you feel like you can be in your true nature without having to compete with the opposite sex.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you 1,000%. And shout out to my man, MC Recovery Wellness, man. I agree with you 1,000%, brother Youssef. And what it does, man, I sound like Miss James Pittman. I sound like a runaway slave, man. But
hey, what's up, everybody?
But yeah, man, it's crazy, man. How you doing, brother? What's your take on this Andrew Tate debacle? I used the thumbnail to talk about men being attacked. I think men being attacked is part of it is by the woke. Part of it is oligarchs behind the scene, plotting and destruction of men. But what's your take on the brother?
Mine is that it should right in a way it doesn't surprise me, because it's like this is like what Alan normally say. They're up here playing chess, and I guess they want us to play checkers. And I can definitely see Kosher being one person that's coming up on 16 years in the mental health system. When I share with these other females, these commissioners and stuff, they especially with our past election that we just had with Karen Bass, they are truly upset with me not wanting to vote for the left. And this Andrew Tate thing, see, I have a 15-year-old son. Him and his friends, they know Andrew Tate. They taking in this information. They taking in it. So when the arrest happened, me as a father, my job is to explain what you're explaining to the young man, and what we're explaining to our audience now, that you know, we got to let them see that this is one of those attacks on our masculinity. And that's what I had to share with my son. Even though he has all that money, and it's more like it's a fear tactic. So like out here, right in the system, we don't have no more open meetings. They love having these Zoom meetings because I believe that they really fear some of the talking points that's coming up out of the manosphere and some of our think tanks in Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like each agency out here, from public health, health services, everybody is still up under the COVID protocol where we have to be masked up. So,
right.
But it's like, you know, shit, I've virtually been still working from home. I'm on vacation now, but you can see this attack in a way where they're planning future strategies. Like my son's in winter camp, right? So he gets a stipend for that. But he went to basketball practice yesterday. Guess what the other strategy that they're doing? Now they're training kids to help out, to be peer counselors at parks, which is good, but it's another tactic. And I think the passport bros is having an effect on that end because they want to catch these kids to be employees.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's exactly what my father told me not to do. He said, don't work for these white men when you get older. So he made me start a candy store business when I was 13. So I was indoctrinated to be an entrepreneur before I even got my first job. But a lot of black boys aren't. And if they are, they're out there selling drugs on the street because that's all they know, because they don't have the fight in the home to teach them how to steer that masculine energy to be productive with their economic gain. So then they end up in jail. And then you have a circular system where they come in and out of jail. They come out of jail. That's all they know how to do. They go back into the drug game or whatever illegal activity, make the money that they know how to make. And then so their entrepreneurial aspect is hijacked. Because that's what it is. But it's in every man innately to want to be an entrepreneur, to start their own business. It's just, it has to be steered in that direction. If it's not, then they're automatically going to go in the opposite direction, or they're going to end up, as you said, employees, and then they're feeling trapped, even more trapped. Because if that's all you knew growing up, you don't even have a concept of what it means to be an entrepreneur. You've been an employee all your life, but you're trapped. So now you're in jail. You have the key to get out of jail. That's the one good thing about America. You can literally get out and do something about that. But you're scared to even open up the jail with the key that you've been given because you've been told to use the key. So now you're an employee or you're a drug dealer. You can't get out of it because your entrepreneurial aspect has been hijacked. Or you're a very fortunate person like myself who understood the difference long before I got into the job market. So that's the reason why I can have the success that I have right now currently as an entrepreneur, is because I have that foundation to fall back on, which my father had instilled for me from birth. And that's what I've been Andrew Tate. That's what they do to all these other good men that they're trying to take down. And that these are the men that slip through the crack. They slip through the cracks and they make it to the public eye and they amass a lot of wealth. And then those men come up and say, wait a second, like this is what my father taught me. And they're like, wait a second, we can't have Andrew Tate coming out here or any man like himself coming out here saying you can do this, you can be great, you can be an actual man. We can't have that happening. Let's get that under control.
Right. Because my son he been making money off of like dancing, some of his drawings. And then so it's like he's getting and helping his dad out with photography. So slowly but surely, I let him know, like, if you do get a job, you always need something like a backup plan. And he's in hip hop winter camp. So they noticed he likes music production. And I noticed it because I bought him a DJ board and I accidentally paid a bill on music production, and he stopped mixing, and he was over there doing more of that. So it makes sense why he's picking what he wants to do.
Right.
So I closed that account, and then but in the winter camp, at the hip hop camp, they do see he's asking a lot of questions. It's just 2 times a week. And it's all because I text a couple of people some of his drawings, and then from out of nowhere, they say, sign them up.
Well, my brother MC Recovery, I'm going to ask you this question real quick, and I'm going to stream my boy. I'm starting with you. First, I'm going to ask Alan, then you. Alan, do you have any boys?
Yes.
Fear for your sons moving forward in this gynocentric culture. And then to brother MC Recovery. Let me go in this stream, man. My boy, Scott.
Well, I have I have a boy, and then I do have some fear, because the fear is based on, somebody falsely accusing him of being pregnant as for like a backup plan.
Right.
See, and and then so I do stress that, he think about getting that passport. I'm gonna have to get him a passport. He's 15 now, so every now and then I take him out there to learn how to drive. See, because he's growing up. He's growing up, and it's like I said, I would have preferred him to go to the football game with our lovely sisters, but he chose to go with Maria, Morena, and all of them to the football game. See, so and then right on the brunt of that, I don't know how the ones that share his complexion views him. So they probably view him like, well, he ain't at the finish line yet, like what Dr. Hassan say on his show. They literally, that's why I have fear of them trying to entrap him in that way, to make sure he stays here in the community. So if he do get to the finish line, they got a backup.
What's your take, brother? I'm sorry, go ahead.
The so-called finish line.
You said, what about the finish line?
The so-called finish line. Just accept him really where he's working from now and build him. But they don't want that. They want the community to burn. They might as well let it burn.
Yeah, let it burn. I totally agree. Brother Alan, what's your biggest fear with your boys, man, coming up in this crazy cesspool that we have?
Oh man. My first marriage I had 2. My second I had 3. So
you got a lot of boys. You a stud, man. I envy you.
Wow.
He in a lot of prayer.
My biggest fear is pretty much what the brother MC Kevin Wellness said, and by me being an older man and a traveled man, I've seen what the world is like outside of this space that called the U.S. And it ain't nothing I can do to stop my wife from flipping out if someone were to put allegations on one of my boys. Like, that's one of my biggest fears right there. Not just pregnancy, but the grape and all that other stuff, because they really don't view us as being human. There was a young lady that said that she hurt some man's feelings, and she's like, I didn't know men had feelings. I'm like, word. They don't see us as being thinking, feeling humans. That they just see us as utilities, and it's sad. And I don't want them to go through the same thing that I went through.
What parts of this do you guys feel like it's spirit? I think a lot of it. I'll show you guys something. Jonathan States the other day. I'm gonna do a show on clip, but I'm gonna show you guys something. I think a lot of this stuff is spiritual. Witchcraft is on the rise.
Hey, Kosher. I don't know if it's just me, but you sound like you fade in and out quite a bit.
Yeah. It's, I don't know, man. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can now.
You need some in the throat drop.
Yeah, I got to get some Ricola, man. I sound like a runaway slave, but hold tight.
That's actually not true. Just side note.
That's my word.
What
all
Charles
of a
just
sudden.
saying.
No, I think that's a mischaracterization.
But basically what Shay was talking about,
We're adding different herbs that manifest prosperity.
Shay's talking about a lot of women are leaving the faith. The Bible said this is what happened in the last days. And some believe that it's witchcraft. Some would say the rebellion is as idolatry. Rebellion is stubbornness, and stubbornness instead of idolatry is as witchcraft. And what's you guys take on the rise of witchcraft and control of men in this modern culture? Before you answer, I want you guys to listen to what Shay talked about.
Prosperity, money, success. I feel like, Hollywood and like in the movies, they kind of like gave this idea that, magic was scary. And it's like, is it scary? It's not.
Would you consider this your religion as opposed to being Catholic?
Yes, definitely. Divination is my main form of like spiritual practice, but being Catholic too, it still like resonates and there's like some roots in there. I feel like Catholicism is extremely wishy. I mean, drinking the blood of Christ, that whole sacrament, that's a ritual. Like it is witchcraft. They just don't want to call it that. I just feel like we kind of need to get rid of that taboo mentality of like, this is something that is like evil or, harmful, because it's not at all. It's the complete opposite of that.
Do you feel like in the last 5 to 10 years or so that is happening?
Because of social media, there's a huge surge of giving a light to the divination community and like witchcraft and everything. And people are now being more vocal about their practice and being more comfortable expressing themselves and showing their craft. And I think that's very beautiful.
This is Ultra Magica for crystals coming out of the broom closet. So I want you guys to notice something real quick. I'm going to continue to, we're almost done with this one, but I want you to notice how as the economy is changing, Black women are getting evicted. Relationships are tanking. Less people are getting married. There's less support economically. People are stressed and anxiety. It's interesting how now you see women turning to different spirituality that essentially makes them feel as if they are in control. Earlier when she was talking, she mentioned something about creating different potions that bring, prosperity and goodwill and merit and all these different things. And so they're basically doing these different rituals as a way to try to combat probably the things that they're, negative things that they're maybe.
What's your guys' take on that? It's about power and control. What's your take on that, Brother MC and then Brother Allen?
Mine is
I gotta get my book messed up.
Well, I see it. Well, I see it more rampant when I go to like we got Lamert Park, and then we also got the Pan African Film Festival coming up next month, and on most of the tables they will have like crystals and all of these little herbs and crystals and teas and people selling cream. So it's more about, but they paint it as women empowerment, Black owned businesses, and when it's like, that's basically what a lot of that is. It's more like if you buy this, they tell you that it's good for this and that, bring good joy and love, but yet you're a Christian selling this stuff. See, so it's like almost like a double-edged sword. And I saw it in my own family, where it's like they told me as a little kid that you don't pray and ask for God for nothing. But when you do it and write it down, it's different. So it really confused me. And then it's confusing our kids to see this because it's making them believe with the cartoons and them doing that maybe this can be true.
Right.
Yeah, but shoot, I forgot the name of the Blackstone that they really be trying to sell. The Onyx or something. I think it's called.
Black Onyx.
Yeah.
Black Onyx. Brother Yusef, real quick. Brother Allen, then Yusef on my end of the stream. I gotta go. My voice is messing up. What's your take on women using the rise of witchcraft and you see proliferating as times continue? Because people talking to Andrew Tate is a form of control, which is tied to witchcraft, because witchcraft is control. Idolatry, rebellion is to idolatry, and idolatry is to say the witchcraft. What's your take on that?
I think, like the lady said, it's a coping mechanism for having a sense of a loss of control. And so for them to have any sort of control, it's like, well, I need to be my own God in a sense. I have to control something for myself. I have to have a sense of ownership of something because I can't trust my own creator. I can't trust what in a lot of cases, they know to be the truth, but they reject it because it's just more convenient. It's convenient not to believe it, especially if you want to live a certain way, you want to do certain things, you want to be rebellious. So it's convenient to go in this direction and say, well, I'm using this, I'm using that, and all of these different magic and potions. I grew up in it, specifically Kabbalism. So I was raised a Jew, went to synagogues and everything, but I also saw the mystical side of things and what my father did in his little room downstairs in the basement, full of candles and pictures and all kinds. So it was like a dichotomy. It was very strange. It worked. I would say it definitely worked, but it also came with consequences. It came with
talk about the consequences. Talk about the consequences.
It's something that took years for me to break. So it's like some sort of malevolent force that is persistent in your life. And you find yourself doing things, having certain thoughts, having certain feelings. But because I grew up in it, I thought that was normal until I was around 25, 26, and I went to church for the first time outside of the synagogue. And then I was delivered of that. I was like, whoa, all of this came up. Like, where did this come from? So when you're dealing with these kind of spirits and witchcraft, it's like you're opening up a door, a portal into that world for them to come in. And it's not of the good nature kind. It gives the appearance of a good nature. I would know because I grew up in it, probably more so than most people. And he's like, oh yeah, I heard this little small voice in my head and told me to do X, Y, Z. But it was something that harmed someone else. It was something that harmed yourself. But you perceive it as good, but you don't know that it's not good. So that's what happens when they dibble and dabble into these different things. You open up a can of worms, and you don't know how to put all those worms back into that can because it gets all over the place. Now you're screwed. And then the only thing you can rely on is God. If you don't even believe in Christ, you have to rely on God to fix that because that's what's required of me to fix it. So they don't even understand what they're getting themselves into a lot of cases, and they're going to end up digging themselves in a deeper hole than they were already in as a result of the path they decided to take. I can't decide or judge what they do. I say, well, more power to them. A lot of people, they have to learn the hard way. That's something to also learn. So I even though I speak on this and I say, well, this is what happens. Some people literally have to go through hell, hell and back to realize, oh yeah, this is not the way. This is
Well, you know what? I want you to save that because I might do a show with you, man. And we're gonna make it special because
you sure about that?
well, no, yeah, I want you to be real with it, man. Because I grew up in the
speaking in tongue and stuff.
Yeah, I know about the occult. I know about it. It's tied to, in the clinical world, we call it parapsychology. But I know what you're saying is real. You talk about the dark forces and all that. And I might even do a show called The Beast Side of Evil. And we'll talk about it, man. Talk about it and share your story because our turn to look at today's show and we'll pair it with talking about it. And we'll break it down. Brother Alex, I gotta go, man. I gotta get out of here.
I definitely agree with Brother Yusuf. I witnessed a certain amount of strange paranormal stuff in my childhood because my mother was into it. But I think that's the nature.
Hold on. Well, I'm ready to bring you in, Brother Yusuf. It's gonna be a good show, man. I'll have to bring both because I do believe. Some feel like, shout out to Brother J. Straw, how you doing, Brother J. Straw? He said he don't believe. I don't believe that the current Christian church is the answer, and Christian religion in this current frame. But I do believe the Word of God is the answer if you apply it correctly. The way the modern church is now, no, it's not the answer. I agree with Brother J. Straw. But
I would say church is a lot better than what I went through. It's way it's miles better than what I experienced. So if it's not, there's no perfect answer, agreed. But I went to enough churches now to know that there's no such thing as a perfect. They preach that, but it's true. But yet still, it is miles. It is leaps and bounds better than being in that state of aimlessness and hopelessness and lost feeling as a result of what I was in, and not knowing how to get out of it. So they do bring that out of you, and they do help you see, even if you go on to move on from that church. Churches still provide a level of stability and spiritual groundedness that's necessary. No matter how much we may disagree about Christianity, they're still there serving people in a lot of different ways, including myself.
Right. I think that the gospel in itself is applied correctly can be a bomb. I just think most current churches now, worldly, not all of them, but many are very secular. And because they are very secular, they don't solve the current ills that we have. But I grew up in church, and I know the power of prayer, knowing that you brothers probably in the occult, and y'all have family members. Well, we're going to do a show. I want to bring you back, Brother Allen. It's going to be called The Beautiful Side of Evil. And let's talk about it real quick. Talking about it, Brother Allen, real quick. And I got to go, guys. No more comments. I know Brother Joseph and try to slide one in. Go ahead.
No, my mother, like I didn't, as a youth, like one of the major differences is as a youth, I didn't have a father there to model myself after. I just had my mother, and I knew that we went to church, but something wasn't quite right.
Talk about that real quick. What wasn't quite right? Talk about
it. Well, as a child, we going to church every Sunday, but yet you still going to the club every Saturday, and you got all these different male friends that are coming through. I'm playing in the living room, y'all in the back room playing. It just you just know something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So, without getting vulgar, it's just as a kid, you know when things aren't quite right. And because of my mother, I had certain spiritual experiences. I've seen all kinds of stuff, but it wasn't until I got older and I became a husband of my first wife. She told me that she received a letter from some group that she never heard about before. Long story short, they pretty much broke down. Okay, this is us. That's what we believe in, and we want to invite you into our circle. Fast forward, years later, that's the same organization my mother and her friends were a part of. So I've watched throughout my 40-some years on Earth, like how these organizations move without really knowing what was going on up until I started studying and learning some of the occult stuff myself. But I was just doing it for knowledge and information because I needed answers to explain why I saw what I saw, why this person did it, what they did. And I still don't have a full understanding of it. I have a basic working understanding of it. But those organizations, they pull from within. So if you're a young man and you get married, well, guess what? They can't recruit you into it, but they'll pull your girl or your wife. But all it is it goes right back to control.
Right.
The women are leaning back on pretty much old practices that they've been doing for all this damn time.
Right.
Because they want to control that beast of burden being you. If you are, especially in this economy, if you're a productive man, she can't afford to lose you because then that means her ass have to work. She'd be out here door dashing, Walmart, Sparks, Uber eating. Why do all that if she can just slip you a little something? Back in 2017, I didn't know how deep it went until some years ago. Back in 2017, I think I mentioned this on your platform before. My first wife, she tried to poison me. I felt myself getting sick, didn't know why, didn't know what was going on. I just thought, okay, it's cold and flu season, but I'm a contractor, I'm an electrician, I'm all these things. I work out, I take my supplements. That broad almost took me up out of here. But he did it for the life insurance. Now, was there some other spiritual aspect to it? Possibly. That would have been a sacrifice. But, it was the sacrifice plus the money. It just got weird. You know what I mean? So I can't speak like I can't speak on the whole thing with a whole lot of knowledge and information, but I've had my own little share of experiences and dealing with people like that, and they weren't pleasant at all.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have these conversations. There's some good brothers that don't agree with everything I say, and I'm okay with that. And I won't agree with everything they say, but I do respect them. Some good brothers, and that's why we're gonna have these conversations. As long as we can be civil and have a difference of opinion, because we're all evolving and growing. But guys, thank you for tuning in. I want to bring you and Brother Yusuf back at some point, and we're gonna do a show called The Beautiful Side of East. And I want you guys to tell your story, but also the rise of the dark arts, and also the rise of witchcraft. Some don't believe it. Why are you scared to talk?
That's gonna be deep.
It's just, I would have to go back and like dig up stuff that.
You might can help some guys, man, because
I remember.
I had a woman one time trying to put some special sauces, try to put me on a spell, man. He was trying to put the coach clinician on the spell. So.
They will do it. They've been doing it.
They're
doing is returning right back to what they've already been doing.
Right.
So all that strong and independent, don't need no man. I make my own money, but grandma told me if I give you this, you're gonna do that. So that's what they do.
Yeah, if I remember, I remember a few months back, Black Ram did a one on demons of King Solomon or something. Ooh, it was deep.
Right, and some people don't like to talk about the spirit world, but it's real. Yeah. It's actually part of right. It's
real.
Right, it is real. Right, it's part of the biopsychosocial and the spiritual. They all coalesce together. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna sign off, man. Shout out to everybody that showed love. Shout out to my man Gregory Scott, my brother Ray Johnson. Everybody showed some love. Guys, hope we get these streams back up to popping like they used to be, man. But I'm grateful to the brothers that tuned in. I've been under the weather, man. I've been sick. I don't know if I had the flu or the beer virus or whatever. It went from that and now my voice is gone, so I don't know what's going on.
Oh, here's a one quick thing you might want to do, and I don't know if you're into it or not, but taking about two dozen oysters raw, like shots, it whatever you got going on, it'll clear it right on up. I would say, beef liver too and all that, but a lot of people are not into that. But at least with raw oyster, they can, okay, I can do that. That'll take care of a lot of the symptoms that you're going on. It'll be over literally the day that you eat those oysters, the following day, you'll be A-okay.
Yeah, man, we about to sign off, but I'll give you about 3 minutes, but you got to show your face in the background first. I never met you, brother. You show your face in the background, Billy the Kid, about 1 or 2 minutes, you can, and then, there you go, cool. And then I got to sign off, man.
What you mean you ain't never met me? You met me in Atlanta, brother. We met in Atlanta. How you ain't meet me?
Oh, okay. I apologize, man. I met so many folks.
We shook hands and hugged. How you gonna do me like that?
Well, okay, all right. Hey, man.
How y'all doing, fellas? How y'all doing?
Shout out to the brother. Shout out to you, man.
Hey, I just wanted to come up here and I wanted to just give you some love, my brother. I like what you're doing. I love the message. I love the information. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Inspiration, motivation. Take it to the next level, Mr. Clinician. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, man, that's what it's all
get it
about,
in.
brother.
Let's get it in. Let's get all the likes up. Let's get all the shares. Everybody who watching right now, let's make sure you share it. We're gonna take it to the next level, going into the next year. Hey, because it's only a measurement of time. And guess what? Time, space, opportunity is all here for us. It's all here for us. Let's take advantage of it all. You know what I'm saying? Everywhere,
no doubt.
Everybody, all at once. Let's do it.
No doubt, man. I appreciate those kind remarks, man. Been on the weather all week, man. And I really appreciate that, man. But I love all the brothers. I respect all the brothers from different opinions, different backgrounds. These conversations for. I don't expect none of you brothers to listen to me to agree with everything I say. And I'm not going to agree with in everything you say. Appreciate all the
Right. But look,
conversation.
hey, and even though it come with negativity, sometimes it's all positivity. I love you.
Right. And the thing is, the brothers that I listen to, I respect them. The brothers that listen to me, they're good brothers, man. They support me. They might not agree with my worldview on everything, and I'm okay with that. But that's why
All
we're
right.
gonna have these conversations, man, and we top it up as men, and we lay aside our petty differences and keep it moving.
That's what makes America great. You get what I mean? That's what makes us a
Right.
great people. That's what makes America a great country because we have difference of opinion and we can say what we mean and stand on it. But you ain't gotta like it. You just gotta understand me and respect me for me. You get what I mean? You ain't gotta agree with it. The law don't say agree with me. The law say that I can say what I want.
Brother Kid, real quick, man, in less than 1 minute, I'm gonna go. Let's take on this Andrew Tate situation real quick, brother Billy Kid.
I think that it's a sad world that is coming to. I think that we are about to revolutionize. I think that things are about to get real violent in the world because of the embellishment of the right of free speech.
Yes, sir.
Of the same thing with Kanye West. Like, why can't a man have a belief in what he believes? I don't believe what you believe, but don't patronize. I mean, don't condemn me because I believe something different than you.
Right.
Where's the morality in that?
Right.
There is no morality in that. And we can only grow through understanding. You get what I mean, brothers?
Right. There's something more dark and sinister, but I won't talk about that on this show. But I definitely want to bring brother Allen back and brother Yusuf back, and we break this thing down comprehensively. And then also to the detractors that don't agree, that's fine. That's why we have the conversation, man. We have the conversation. And my war cry has been, whereas men, we may not agree on all things or ideologies, but we come together as allies of a common cause, only to dissipate once the crisis is over. There is a crisis in heteronormative masculinity. Go ahead,
Mr. Clinician, I say this. I respect you and also Mr. Recovery and Wellness as brothers and as men. I respect y'all as men, first of all. And I respect y'all a lot more because than the average man, because y'all are older African American men, and y'all deserve my respect. So there's nothing that I will ever say against y'all that will ever be disrespectful. Y'all are griots to me. Y'all are only placed in my life through God to learn from.
No doubt. I appreciate that, young brother. I appreciate that. That's a lot.
And if we have this basis of respect and openness and honesty, but guess what? What y'all two say ain't the law. It ain't Bible either. You get what I mean? But I can respect you for what you're saying.
Right. No doubt. Respect, man. I agree with that. Yeah, I can roll with that. That was a well said. Your brothers, y'all showed love. We were small in number, but you guys showed a lot of support with your donations and your time, and I really appreciate that. I wanted to do this show with Andrew Tate. A lot of consternation about it, but I finally got a chance to do it. So, guys, we signing off. I'll see you guys soon. And like I said, guys, y'all take care, man. Get you some rest. And signing off. I told you guys before in the past, man, I told you brothers that there are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become optimized. And understanding the world and how female psychology plays a role on the function of a man is paramount. So, guys, we're about to sign off. Drop some fire for your mind. My voice is gone, guys. And guys, y'all be well. The poll is complete.